Chapter 971, Unexpected News, Yes. Lan Hua nodded in embarrassment. Logically speaking, she should have stayed at home to take care of her in-laws. However, Jiang Bao insisted on taking her away. They were newlyweds, and he did not want them to be separated. What was the difference between that and not being married? Although Jiang Bao's parents were a little unhappy, Jiang Bao was the most promising person in the family now. In addition, Jiang Bao's words were pleasant and he promised to give more money to the family. His parents did not force Lan Hua to stay at home. However, since Lan Hua had gone to the prefectural city, they would get the couple to quickly give birth to a child. Jiang Bao agreed immediately. In any case, he had achieved his goal. Gu Yundong laughed. Since you're also going to the prefectural city, do you want to consider becoming a female worker at New Tea Pavilion? Everyone fell silent and looked at Gu Yundong in shock. The name New Tea Pavilion was not unfamiliar to them. Although they had never seen it with their own eyes, they knew that this was a shop opened by the boss in the prefectural city. It was specially used to entertain female guests. The shopkeepers, chefs, and waiters inside were all female. Now, the boss actually wanted to hire Lan Hua as a female worker? This, Lan Hua became excited. Can I really go? Of course you can. I've wanted to find you for a long time. However, you wanted to get married previously. After you got married, I wasn't sure if you wanted to stay at home or go to the prefectural city, so I didn't say anything. Now that it's confirmed, I naturally have to ask if you're willing. Yes, of course I'm willing. As a female worker, she could earn more money. Now that she had her own small family, she would have her own children in the future. She had heard that everything in the prefectural city was expensive. If she had to rely on Jiang Bao alone to support her and her children and provide for her parents, how much pressure would that be? Hence, she had already thought about it. When she arrived at the prefectural city, she would do more embroidery to cover for the family's expenses. Although it was not much, he could at least help Jiang Bao share some of the burden. He would not be too flustered if he had some money. Unexpectedly, before she could go to the prefectural city, her boss gave her a huge surprise. It was just, "Boss, can I do it well? I don't know anything. Will I mess it up for you? If you don't know anything, then learn. Everyone learns everything from nothing." Gu Yundong felt that with Lan Hua's smartness, she was definitely much better than that Shao from before. I'll bring you to meet Su Qing later. She already has experience. If you have any questions later, just ask her. Okay. The matter was settled just like that. The Shi family was very happy. Jiang Bao brought Lan Hua home and did not mention this to his parents. They had agreed on how much money to give the family. What if the brothers at home were unhappy because Lan Hua had an extra salary and wanted him to give an extra? Jiang Bao was planning for himself. In the next few days, the Shi family and the Jiang family began to prepare to go to the prefectural city. Gu Yundong handed over the fruit trees that the Shi family was in charge of to Zhao Zhu. Zhao Zhu was very happy. The more he managed, the more capable he was. However, he had already started to hand over some to his son. Gosheng was also becoming more and more diligent. The relationship between the father and son had taken a huge step forward compared to before, and many of the knots in his heart were slowly untied. 5 days later, the Shi family and Jiang Bao with his wife placed their luggage in the carriage and prepared to head to the prefectural city. Gu Yundong had to go with her. After all, she had not been to the prefectural city since the new year. She had to look at the account book and send red packets after the new year. She had to explain things clearly. Unexpectedly, just as they were about to set off, they heard an unexpected piece of news. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 972, The Li family's second branch. The niece of the Shi family, Shao, was engaged. Moreover, the person she was engaged to was from Yongfu village. The Shi family was a little stunned. What was the He family thinking? The two families had just fallen out, and the He family wanted to marry their daughter here? What kind of family was so attractive to He Shao? Gu Yundong asked around and got an answer. Her expression immediately became strange. It was actually the Li family. The son of the second branch of the Li family. Gu Yundong did not have a good impression of the Li family, but she hated the first branch of the Li family the most. Although the second and third branches turned a blind eye to Shao Qingyuan's experiences when he was young and were dissatisfied with old Master Li doting on Shao Qingyuan, they did not persecute him too much. Therefore, Gu Yundong only treated them as strangers. Ever since she and Shao Qingyuan caused a scene in the Li family last time, the Li family's first branch did not dare to make a sound. They were like invisible people in the village and did not dare to approach the Gu family at all. It was said that they still did not dare to walk on the main road that she had built. This was also good. Only when they were afraid would they behave themselves. As for the second and third branches, they did not have much of a grudge with the Gu family. Although they were a little afraid, they wanted to earn money. Last time, they wanted to work in the Gu family's workshop, but they were rejected by Tong'an in the first round. She really did not expect the son of the second branch to be with He Shao of the He family. When He heard this, she sighed slightly. Forget it. She has nothing to do with us anymore. It doesn't matter who she marries. Anyway, we're going to the prefectural city. We won't have many chances to meet them in the future. The Shi family members nodded. Zhuangzi was glad that he had made the decision to bring his parents to the prefectural city. Otherwise, with his parents' personality, they might have been schemed against by He Shao. After all, she was so bold that she even dared to touch Madame Yang. If that was the case, Zhuangzi would definitely prevent her from marrying into Yongfu village. The group quickly forgot about He Shao and went to the prefectural city happily. When they arrived at the Xuanhe Prefecture, it was already late. Gu Yundong asked everyone to go to the small courtyard to rest. They would go to the shop tomorrow to arrange work. There were not many people in the small courtyard, and there was already a lot of dust. Fortunately, the Shi family, Jiang Bao, and the others were diligent people. After cleaning up for a while, they could stay. Dinner was easy to settle. When Shi Dashan came, he had brought a lot of vegetables that he had picked from the side of the house. Now, they were filled in 2 big boxes. They could easily make some meals. He Yi and Lan Huar went to the kitchen to work. Gu Yundong took this opportunity to knock on the door of the neighbor's house with a caddy of white sugar, 2 cans, and a few pastries. There was a family of 5 living here. The owner's surname was Wang, and the Wang family's son was also studying at Tianhai Academy. He had become familiar with Gu Dajiang, and the two of them often discussed knowledge together and went to the academy together. When the Gu family returned to Yongfu village, there was no one in the small courtyard, so they asked the Wang family to help take care of it. Now that Gu Yundong was back, she naturally had to thank him. When the Wang family saw that she had brought over a lot of things, they quickly declined. Gu Yundong said, "I have to go back after staying here for a few days. I still have to ask you to take care of the house. If you don't accept the gifts, I won't be able to continue troubling you." The Wang family was speechless and accepted the items. But just as Gu Yundong was about to leave, Mother Wang suddenly pulled her back and looked mysterious. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 973, Someone is looking for you, Yundong, let me tell you. When your family was not around, someone came a few times and kept wandering around your house. I don't know what he was doing. I asked a few questions, and she asked me when your family would come back. Gu Yundong was stunned. Her first reaction was to wonder if youngest Uncle Gu had been found. But on second thought, if it was youngest Uncle Gu, he must have gone to Aunt K's place. He wouldn't have come to the small courtyard directly. She was a little disappointed. She calmed herself down and asked, "Who was it? What did she look like?" "It's just a young woman. She's been here several times. She's been especially diligent these past 2 days." "Oh, right, when she came yesterday, there was a young lady beside her. Gu Yundong searched her mind. A young woman with a young girl, who knew the address of her small courtyard. That could only be Shao Yuan and her mother. Gu Yundong described the appearance of the mother and daughter to Mother Wang, who nodded repeatedly. That's right, that's right. It's them. Yundong, do you know them? Yes, I know them. They might be looking for our family for something. I'll go over and take a look tomorrow. Then, Gu Yundong took her leave. Early the next morning, Gu Yundong brought the Shi family to Gus and met Jingang. Gus was as busy as ever. Fortunately, there were 2 employees and there was a break. Zhuangzi's eyes lit up when he saw the shop. He secretly said to Jiang Bao, "Indeed, I made the right choice to come to the prefectural city. Look at how big this shop is and how good the business is. The prefectural city is so prosperous. In the future, becoming the shopkeeper of this prefectural city will be my goal." Jiang Bao also raised his head and looked around. Compared to the prefectural city, the difference was too great. He had just walked all the way from the small courtyard. The crowd on this street was not something the county city could compare to. As for Gus, not only were there many people coming and going, but the customers were also very generous. Other than white sugar, there was no restriction on buying preserved fruit jam, so there were especially many people buying it. No wonder the Gu family's workshop wanted to hire so many people to rush the production. At this moment, be it Jiang Bao, Zhuangzi, or even Lan Huar, they were filled with fighting spirit. Now, there were 2 shop assistants in the shop. One was Ah Shu, and the other was Su Changshan. Ah Shu was originally a temporary worker. Now that Zhuangzi was here, he was finally free. Speaking of which, he preferred to run around and did not like to stay in a shop and be busy. Gu Yundong called Su Changshan over and introduced him to Zhuangzi. From now on, you will both be the shop assistants in this shop. Get to know each other first. You have to get along well and help each other. Su Changshan was honest, but he still nodded excitedly. On the other hand, Zhuangzi was very adaptable. After all, he had been a shopkeeper before. He instantly chatted with Su Changshan. Gu Yundong then distributed this year's open business red packets and told Jingang about the shop's business. Then, they went to Shao Qingyuan's pharmacy. Jiang Bao already knew Dr. Xiong. He was also familiar with Ah Zhu in the shop. In addition, he was smart and quickly integrated into the pharmacy team. Gu Yundong would not ask Dr. Xiong about the pharmacy. After all, he was focused on studying medicine. However, with Ah Zhu around, it was enough for her to know the situation of the shop. Finally, Gu Yundong brought He Yi and Lan Huar to New Tea Pavilion. New Tea Pavilion entertained the female guests, so Zhuangzi and the others stayed behind. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 974, Where's My Aunt Ku? With Madame Chiu at New Tea Pavilion, it had indeed improved greatly since her visit last time. At least the waiters wouldn't make a fuss anymore. Everything seemed to be in order. When Gu Yundong arrived, all of them stopped what they were doing and greeted her respectfully, Boss Gu. This Boss Gu was not to be trifled with at all. They still had a deep impression of what she had done in the shop last time. Whether it was the handling of the quarrel between the 2 madams or the small gifts given to every guest, it was still a hot topic. During this period of time, there were even customers who came from time to ask if there were any more paintings. They could directly spend money to buy them. It was said that all the husbands and brothers of these madams and young ladies wanted it. Unfortunately, there were no more paintings. Gu Yundong brought Lan Huar to Madame Chiu and said, "Madame Chiu, didn't you say that this New Tea Pavilion is still short of people? This is Lan Huar. She's from the same village as me. She's smart and has a good image. Is there a problem with her helping in this New Tea Pavilion?" Lan Huar quickly followed Gu Yundong's instructions. With a smile on her face, she greeted obediently, "Hello, Madame Chiu." Madame Chiu nodded slightly and sized up Lan Huar, feeling slightly satisfied. she was still looking forward to the person Gu Yundong had found. At least, she was better than the people that Madame Dai and Nie Shuang had found. The waiters they brought were all servants who had signed a death contract in the residence. Admittedly, such loyal waiters would not be easily bribed. However, perhaps because they were used to being servants, they would subconsciously lower themselves when they met guests. Madame Chiu had to adjust them for a long time to change this bad habit. On the other hand, Su Qing did not have the cautious attitude of a servant. Although she also bent slightly in front of the guests, her back was straight. She even dared to raise her head in front of the guests. She was magnanimous and spoke smoothly. More importantly, she was also smart. As long as Madame Chiu gave her some pointers, she would be able to learn very quickly. She was the person Madame Chiu was most satisfied with. Now that Gu Yundong had sent over Lan Huar, Madame Chiu was already 50% satisfied when she saw the girl's refreshing appearance and clear eyes. Alright, leave her behind. However, I have to say this first. If she can't satisfy me in half a month, I'll return her. Of course. We agreed that this new tea pavilion is now managed by you. Gu Yundong was confident in this. If Lan Huar was stupid, she would not have sent her over. Otherwise, wouldn't she be slapping herself in the face? Gu Yundong called Su Qing over and said to Lan Huar, "This is Su Qing. Su Changshan, whom we met earlier, is her brother. She has been working in New Tea Pavilion for a long time. If you have anything you don't understand, just ask her. There are few customers now. Let Su Qing show you around the shop first." Okay. Lan Huar was a little excited. When she entered just now, she felt that this shop was very different. She was filled with curiosity and excitement. Gu Yundong let the two of them go alone, and he followed. Then, she asked Madame Chiu about the situation at New Tea Pavilion. Madame Chiu, on the other hand, was very happy. It's very good. This milk tea shop, which is unique in the prefectural city, is very popular. If it weren't for the fact that the weather is cold and people are lazy and unwilling to go out, I'm afraid it would have been filled with people even if it was morning. Where's Aunt Ku? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 975, looking for Eldest Aunt Ku was also helping out in the shop, but Gu Yundong hadn't seen her since her arrival. Madame Chiu waved her hand and lowered her voice. Sister Ku has gone to the capital. Gu Yundong was shocked. To the capital? Why? Did she go alone? When did she go? What happened? There were a lot of questions at once, and Madame Chiu could hear her anxiety and knew that she was very concerned about Aunt Ku. Therefore, she quickly said, she went there a few days ago. She and Nie Shuang went to the capital. It seemed to be about young Master Nie. Young Master Nie? Nie Tsong? Ever since she came to the prefectural city, she had not seen Nie Tsong again. Aunt Ku only said that he had been sent elsewhere by his father to train. So he had gone to the capital? Seeing that she was still frowning, Madame Chiu comforted her. Don't worry. I heard from Madame Dai that it shouldn't be a big deal, so you don't have to worry too much. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. Since Madame Dai said so, the problem must not be serious. She then asked about Madame Dai's situation and found out that she was not in the prefectural city either. It seemed that Dai Wenhua had escorted her to celebrate some old madame's birthday. Gu Yundong dispelled her plan to visit the Dai residence. Then, Madame Chiu told her about the major events that had happened in the prefectural city in the past few months. Gu Yundong had an idea. After she finished reading the account book, she planned to leave New Tea Pavilion. Gu Yundong still had to look for Shao Yuan and her mother and ask them if there was anything urgent. She planned to go alone. It was not far from here. Therefore, she asked He Yi and her daughter to stay here. If they could help, they would help. Or they could see how others treated the guests. It was good to get used to it in advance. Then, Gu Yundong took Tong Shuetao and drove the carriage to Xingtao Street. she went to Shao Yuan's house and knocked on the door. Fortunately, Madame Fan and Shao Yuan were both at home. It seemed that they did not go to the flower market to sell flowers today. When Gu Yundong stepped through the door and realized that there were not many flowers in the courtyard, she understood. The weather was cold, and there were not many people in the flower market. There were also fewer flowers. When she saw Gu Yundong, Madame Fan quickly welcomed her. "Miss Gu, you're all back?" "No, I'm the only one back. I still have to leave in a few days. I heard from the aunt next door that you and Shao Yuan went to the small courtyard to look for our family. Is there anything wrong?" Madame Fan nodded. "There's indeed something I want to talk to your eldest aunt about." "Looking for eldest aunt?" "Yes, eldest aunt went to the flower and bird market to sell wood carvings." The stall was adjacent to Madame Fan's. The two of them seemed to be quite compatible. It was said that they had a good relationship. Here it goes. Previously, your eldest aunt told me to help pay attention to whether there are any houses here for rent. Some time ago, a family's house on the street behind us happened to be empty. The house is not big, but the rent is all right. It costs 1 taels a month, so I went to the small courtyard to look for your eldest aunt. Madame Fan said, "It's just that I haven't seen her come back. Moreover, 2 days ago, I saw someone bringing people to take a look at the house. It was because the other party was not satisfied with the price and wanted to lower the price, so there was a dilemma. I'm worried that if we wait a little longer, that house will be rented out. To be honest, it's not easy to find a house there." Although Xingtao Street was also a chaotic place, and there were local tyrants who would come out from time to cause trouble, its position was actually not bad. The rent for the places with slightly better security was expensive. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 976, Gu Dajiang participates in the county examination. Gu Yundong pursed her lips slightly. Eldest aunt Gu had told her and Gu Dajiang not long ago that she wanted to move out. Gu Dafeng was a strong-willed person. It was naturally not a problem for her to live in a small courtyard for a short period of time, but she could not live there forever. After all, this was the Gu family's house, and she had already married into the Bien family. There was no reason for her to stay at her younger brother's house with her husband and son. However, she did not have enough money on hand at the moment, so she could only find a cheaper and smaller place to rent. After getting to know Madame Fan, eldest aunt Gu heard from her that Xingtao Street was not bad and that there were acquaintances like Madame Fan and her daughter around, so she asked them to help keep an eye on it. She just didn't expect it to happen so quickly. But it was impossible for Gu Yundong to let Gu Dafeng move here now. Bien Han's legs had not recovered yet. If he moved out now, if he was not careful, the early treatment would all be in vain. Eldest aunt was going to sell wood carvings. If uncle was the only one at home, what if he accidentally fell? At the very least, they had to let him stand up on his own. Only then could he move out. In Gu Yundong's opinion, it would take at least half a year. Gu Yundong had said this to Gu Dafeng before. After some consideration, Gu Dafeng finally agreed to continue living in the small courtyard. However, she clearly did not have time to tell Madame Fan about this. This was a waste of Madame Fan's efforts. Wait a minute, Gu Yundong suddenly thought of Zhuangzi. Didn't they say that they were looking for a house? If they lived here, Zhuangzi and Jiang Bao could go to the shop with Su Changshan, and Su Qing could be with Lan Huar. The two women wouldn't have to worry too much. Everyone lived close to each other and could help each other. At the thought of this, Gu Yundong hurriedly said to Madame Fan, "Thank you for your kind intentions, aunt. My eldest aunt won't rent a house here for the time being." Madame Fan was stunned for a moment before Gu Yundong continued, "But I do have someone who wants to rent a house. I'll get Shui Tao to call them over. How about we take a look at that house later?" Madame Fan quickly nodded. Of course. Gu Yundong asked Tong Shui Tao to bring Zhuangzi and the others back. When the Shi family arrived, Madame Fan brought them to the street at the back and found the owner. The owner looked at the large group of people and was shocked. He asked Madame Fan, "There are so many people living here?" "Of course not," Gu Yundong replied. "The three of them are the tenants. We're just here to take a look." The owner heaved a sigh of relief. His house was small. If he squeezed so many people in, it would make him feel like his house was about to be destroyed. These people were up to no good. The group of people entered the house and walked around. The house was indeed small and there were only 2 rooms. It was just right for Zhuangzi and Jiang Bao to have one each. However, the house was quite clean. Gu Yundong felt that it was not bad. Zhuangzi and the others were also quite satisfied. They even seemed a little excited. In the end, Gu Yundong helped bargain and rented it for 1.3 taels a month. After settling the matter of the house, Zhuangzi, Jiang Bao, and Lan Hua also did their own jobs and quickly got to work. 2 days later, Gu Yundong brought Sherdashan and his wife to a manor in the suburbs and handed them over to Shuezongguang. After they settled down, she returned to Yongfu village without stopping. 5 days later, the date of the county examination arrived. The Gu family woke up early in the morning. Gu Yundong even checked Gu Dajiang's things several times. Very good. The brush, ink, paper, and inkstone were all there. The 10 pieces of clothing were also put on. Everything was ready. The rest would depend on her father's luck. She hoped that nothing would happen to his position. However, things did not go as planned. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 977, Daughters Love. Outside the county examination hall, there were many people squeezing in. It was still early, and the sky was not completely bright. The temperature was low and very cold. Gu Dajiang couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief when he got out of the carriage. There were too many people, so the carriage could only stop a little further away and then they had to get down to walk. Gu Dajiang held a test basket in his hand. It was filled with many things that Gu Yundong had prepared for him. The group of people followed him in. Not long after, they saw Qin Wenjing standing not far away. Yi Junkin and his family stood beside him. This time, only Yi Junkin participated in the county examination in Qin Wensheng's school. The 13-year-old youth was a little excited and nervous. His family even pulled him along and reminded him. Yi Junkin quickly greeted Gu Dajiang. Qin Wenjing looked at the two of them and said, "The first round of the county examination isn't difficult. Most people who can read and write well will pass. As long as you're not too nervous and maintain a clean and tidy paper, it won't be a problem to pass. The examiner will naturally explain the rules of the examination hall to you later. Just do as you're told." Then, he lowered his voice and added, "Remember, you can't mention His Majesty's name or those of the late emperors." The two of them nodded and carefully noted it down. Not long after, there was a sound in front of them. They were preparing to enter the venue after the body check. Gu Dajiang and Yi Junkin quickly walked forward and lined up at the back of the queue. There were many people participating in the county examination. There were hundreds of people in Fengkai County, so they were divided into several rows for body check. Gu Dajiang stood at the back of the team and couldn't help but rub his nose. After all, he was considered rather old here. Most of the people who participated in the county examination were about the same age as Yi Junkin. For someone like Gu Dajiang, if he hadn't even passed the county examination, he would basically be recognized as not talented in studying. Most of them wouldn't take the examination again. Of course, there were also some who refused to give up. They were already so old and even had grandchildren, but they still refused to give up. Every year, such people participated in the county examination and would be pointed at and discussed softly. Now, Gu Dajiang had become the subject of discussion. But, he was fearless. Fortunately, it wasn't long before it was his turn. Gu Dajiang handed the examination basket to the guard and let others remove his coat with a calm expression. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the guard was speechless. Is this person crazy? He looked at Gu Dajiang with a strange expression. The corners of his mouth twitched as he asked, "How many clothes are you wearing?" 10. Gu Dajiang glanced at the shocked expressions of the people behind him from the corner of his eye. He coughed lightly and said, "There's nothing I can do. My children are filial. They insist that the weather is still cold and the exam is quite stressful. If I accidentally catch a cold, won't all my previous efforts be in vain? I can't let them down." In the end, he even puffed out his chest. "Don't worry, they're all thin clothes. It's obvious at a glance. There's no problem." The corners of the guard's mouth twitched as he glared at Gu Dajiang in dissatisfaction. This was clearly increasing their workload. Hence, the examination basket had already been checked. They were still looking at Gu Dajiang's shoes. However, when they saw Gu Dajiang putting on his clothes again and warming up, the others who were watching the joke couldn't help but shiver. They were so cold. After checking, Gu Dajiang walked in relaxed. After entering, they still had to queue up and wait for the county officials to call their names. There would also be a ritual. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 978, Failed the First Examination? After confirming everything, Gu Dajiang walked in with his badge. However, the more he walked, the more hesitant he became. A faint smell that left a deep impression on him came from the tip of his nose. In the end, he stood in front of his examination booth with tears streaming down his face. Yundong, you jinx. His luck was indeed extraordinary. He was really next door to the toilet. Why aren't you going in yet? The guard behind looked over and asked with a frown. Gu Dajiang chuckled in his heart. You already know the answer. Why don't I go in? Then why are you standing so far away? Why are you covering your nose when you ask? He wanted to take a deep breath, but after thinking about it, he decided not to. He even tried his best to slow down his breathing and slowly walked into the test shed. Fortunately, he had such experience before and was used to it, or maybe not. Gu Dajiang couldn't help but curse. He quickly took out the examination basket, found 2 patches of ointment, and pasted them on his temples. This was what Gu Yundong had asked the doctor to prepare. It could refresh the mind. Then, he took out a mask. This mask was very thin. It was only 2 pieces of cloth. There were 2 strings at the side that could pull the cloth together after all. They had to do a body search before entering the venue. Gu Yundong could not prepare too much for her father. 2 pieces of cloth were the limit. Then, Gu Dajiang stuffed the dried flowers between the cloths and covered his mouth and nose. Indeed, he was much better. The guard not far away had a deep impression of Gu Dajiang's 10 pieces of clothes, so he didn't leave just now. When he saw his actions, the corners of his mouth twitched. What's going on? Did he predict that he would be sitting beside the toilet, so he prepared so well in advance? But that wasn't all. Gu Dajiang took out another small bottle and dripped 2 drops into every corner. In an instant, a fragrance spread in the surroundings. The surrounding examinees were speechless. Brother, thank you. Gu Dajiang was finally ready, but when he thought about how there were still a few more rounds to go, he sighed inwardly. He was hesitating. After the first round, would he not take the next round? There were a total of 5 rounds of the county examination. The first round was the main event. Whether the candidates participated in the subsequent rounds was up to them. However, most of them would continue. Gu Dajiang had planned to finish all 5 rounds from the beginning. He was extremely sad, but after receiving the test paper, he calmed down and began to answer the questions seriously. However, many students who were participating in the county examination for the first time were too nervous. Not long after, someone ran to the toilet with an upset stomach. Gu Dajiang was speechless. This would affect his performance. Fortunately, he was fully armed. Coupled with the fact that the first round was not difficult, he focused on writing quickly. The first test consisted of 2 essays and 1 poem. The subjects and styles of the essays and poem were fixed. The entire volume could not exceed 700 words. It was indeed not difficult for Gu Dajiang. At noon, Gu Dajiang only ate some pastries and continued answering the questions. He should be the first to put down his brush. A guard noticed his situation and couldn't help but take a second look at him. After Gu Dajiang finished writing, he put down his pen and paper and read it carefully twice. Then, he waited for the release. He finished answering early and was the first batch to leave. When he walked out, he realized that Junkin had also come out. His expression was very calm and there was no problem with it. On the other hand, Junkin was shocked when he saw Gu Dajiang's conflicted expression. It was not the right time to ask him. After the two of them left the examination hall, Junkin asked cautiously, "Uncle Gu, are you all right? Could it be that he had failed the first round? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 979, Too Tragic. Gu Dajiang didn't feel too good. He felt that he had a smell on him. Didn't Junkin feel it when he stood beside him? Junkin saw his strange expression and thought that he really did not do well. He quickly comforted him. The county examination is held once a year. Many people are very nervous the first time they take the examination. But after all, after the first time, it won't happen again. Uncle Gu, let's. Before he could finish speaking, Gu Yundong and the others hurried over. "Father, how are you? Are you all right?" She did not ask about the results. After all, Gu Yundong was very confident in her father. But when she saw Gu Dajiang's expression, why did he look so listless? Before Gu Dajiang could say anything, two candidates walked past him. They covered their noses and pointed at him with smiles. "That's him. The test shed is by the latrine. It's him. That's too tragic. Look at him. He's so old. I reckon he has taken the examination many times but never passed. This time, he was unlucky enough to be assigned to the toilet. There's definitely no hope this year. Isn't that so?" Not long after noon, I looked up and realized that he had put down his brush. He must have given up on himself. It's too tragic. If it were me, I definitely wouldn't be able to take it and would vomit. Gu Dajiang was speechless. If you want to discuss others, shouldn't you walk further away? Why did you stand beside me and not lower your voice at all? He glared at the two of them. The two examinees were shocked and quickly pulled each other away. He's angry from embarrassment. Let's go, let's go. Gu Yundong's eyes flashed with disbelief. No, it couldn't be. Although she had made preparations, she did not expect the misfortune to really land on her father. The rest of the Gu family also felt that Gu Dajiang was too pitiful, but they should be comforting him at this time. Why did they want to laugh? Junkin's eyes widened even more. So, Uncle Gu did not look well because of the bad location of the examination hall? Then how did he do? Gu Yundong was the one who calmed down and suppressed the smile on her lips. She looked up and saw her father's angry expression. After a moment of silence, she sighed and patted his shoulder. "Father, you have to thank me. Let's go home." At this moment, Gu Dajiang only wanted to go back and take a shower. After bidding farewell to Qin Wenjing and Junkin, he left in a hurry. Gu Yundong and the others looked at each other and immediately followed him into the carriage. Almost everyone in Yongfu village knew that the head of the Gu family, Gu Dajiang, was going to participate in the county examination. All of them were looking forward to it. Some people hoped that he would pass, while others hoped that he would fail. However, no matter what they were thinking, there were many people waiting at the entrance of the village. When they saw the Gu family's carriage, they hurriedly ran forward and asked, "Dajiang, how did you do?" "Dajiang, I heard that this county examination is very difficult." "How did you do?" "It doesn't matter if you don't pass. It's held once a year. You can continue to take the exam next year. Anyway, your family can afford it." Gu Yundong frowned slightly. She lifted the curtain and said to the people outside, "Everyone, disperse. It's only the first round. How can you know the results so quickly after the exam?" "When will we know the result?" someone asked. After all, it had been a long time since an elementary scholar appeared in Yongfu village. They didn't even know how the county examination would be conducted. "In about half a month." "What? That long?" Gu Yundong ignored everyone else and the carriage quickly returned to the Gu residence. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 980, Result publicized 2 days later, Gu Dajiang participated in the second exam. The second round was a challenge, the third round was another challenge, and the fourth and fifth rounds were consecutive. After every round, the examinees would rest for 2 days. Therefore, it was not too hard for them to pass these 5 rounds. Ever since the first round, Gu Dajiang had gotten used to that smell. In the next few rounds, Gu Yundong even tried to find dry flowers that could make him feel more comfortable and asked him to put them under his mask. Gu Dajiang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Actually, it didn't matter anymore. The special training at home had been very useful. He sat beside the latrine and could calmly write his article. It did not matter. However, after the last exam, Gu Dajiang quickly ran out. After returning home, he immediately took a shower and soaked in the bathtub for an hour. He sighed faintly. Indeed, it is easy to go from frugal to extravagant, but it is difficult to go from extravagant to frugal. In the past, when I was in Gu village, I grabbed cow and pig dung with my bare hands. My body was so dirty that a layer of mud could be scraped off, but I could still lie down and sleep soundly. Now, however, it was indeed very comfortable to take a bath. Furthermore, when he came out, his daughter personally made delicious food and placed it on the table. At that moment, Gu Dajiang felt extremely satisfied. The Gu family didn't even ask about the results. There were still 5 days before the results were publicized. During this period, he just had to eat and drink well. However, the others in Yongfu village were scratching their ears and cheeks. They wished they could come to the Gu family every day to ask. No one knew why they were in such a hurry. Even Dong Shilan came to the Gu residence twice to ask. Gu Yundong was speechless. Even if he passed the county examination, he would not be an elementary scholar. There was still the prefectural examination. He would only be considered an elementary scholar if he passed it. Time passed quickly, and 5 days were gone in a flash. That morning, everyone in the Gu family woke up early. Although they all felt that there was no problem with passing the county examination, they still could not suppress their nervousness. The entire family got into the carriage and headed for the county city. The villagers of Yongfu village were a step too late. When they arrived, the Gu family had already left. Gu Yundong had reserved a table at a restaurant near the county office 2 days ago. It was still early and the result wouldn't be publicized so quickly. The group entered the restaurant and sat on the second floor by the street. Not long after, Qin Wenjing and Yi Junkin arrived. The restaurant was soon filled with people. Gu Yundong ordered some food and ate while waiting. Soon, even the streets were filled with people. It was lively below, and everyone was discussing who might be on the rankings. Qin Wenjing also said, "Only 50 people will pass this county examination. There are still many talented students in the county city. Shao, Yu Hongkai, and the others from Dongyi Academy are very likely to be on the list. However, the 2 of you have solid knowledge, so I'm not worried. I just don't know what ranking you are." Gu Dajiang usually studied in the prefectural city. He didn't know many students in the county city. However, the students in the county city often held poetry and essay conferences. Some people who did well stood out. These people were all popular candidates for this county examination. Soon, it was noon. Gu Yundong and the others were about to get up and look at the government office when they heard the sound of wind blowing and beating. The people who were waiting in the restaurant all stood up. The result has been publicized. The result has been publicized. Quick, go down and take a look. With a series of crackling sounds, many people rushed downstairs. However, the streets below were filled with people. Even if they went down, they would not be able to squeeze through. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 981, Who's the County Champion? The Gu family members calmly continued to sit in the restaurant on the second floor. If they went down now, they would not be able to squeeze in at all. It was better to wait for the crowd to disperse before going down. Junkin's family wanted to go down, but seeing that the Gu family was in such a state and that Qin Wenjing was still around, they stabilized themselves and continued to eat and drink. Only their table was left on the huge second floor. The streets below were already crowded with people. 2 armed bailiffs opened the way in front, and the 2 bailiffs behind walked to the notice board with the rankings. Everyone looked at them eagerly. The few bailiffs were expressionless and only scolded the crowd that was squeezing around. Move aside and step back. When there was an empty space in front of the notice board, the 2 bailiffs opened the list and pasted it on the wall. After the post was done and the bailiffs left, everyone went forward with a bang. Not long after, someone shouted loudly, I won, 30th place, ha 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 ha, 30th place. Someone beside him immediately congratulated him. That person looked at the rankings happily for a while more before being pulled out by the person behind him. Get out after you're done checking. Don't block the people behind you. Gu Yundong and the others stood on the second floor. As they were far away, they could not see the names on the list clearly. They could only look at the various expressions of the people on the streets. Some people were ecstatic and screamed loudly. Some people cried loudly and beat their chests. Gu Yundong even saw an old man with white hair covering his face and crying bitterly. He shouted heart-wrenchingly, I didn't pass. Why didn't I pass? I can even recite the 4 books and 5 classics backwards. Why didn't I pass? God, you're unfair to me. Someone beside him looked at him sympathetically and comforted him. If you don't win this time, there will be a next time. You will definitely win next time. Yes. That person came back to his senses and nodded heavily. Yes, I'll take the exam again next year. I'll go back and read. I'll definitely be able to pass. Gu Yundong was speechless. This man looked about the same age as old Gu. He had not even passed the county examination after so many years. He still wanted to continue? As one got older, their memory and comprehension abilities would deteriorate. He might do even worse next year. Gu Yundong shook her head and looked away, no longer looking at him. There were still many people on the streets. Some people could not squeeze through and simply asked the people in front if their names were on it. Some people knew that they did not pass, so they asked others. Who's the champion? Who's first? Is it sure Shao or Yu Hongkai? I guess it must be sure Shao. I think it's Yu Hongkai. Maybe it's someone else? Some people could not see the rankings and could only discuss outside. However, in the next moment, a shout came from inside. It's not sure Shao or Yu Hongkai. It's Gu Dajiang. The county champion is Gu Dajiang. It's Gu Dajiang. The students behind were suddenly shocked. Gu Dajiang? Who is Gu Dajiang? Why haven't I heard of him? I've never heard of him either. Where did he come from? In short, he's not a student of our Dongyi Academy. Gu Dajiang, where is Gu Dajiang? Come out, Gu Dajiang. After the people on the street recovered from their shock, they began to look for people. This was really a dark horse. They actually didn't know this county champion. They had never heard of this name. At this moment, the Gu family on the second floor of the restaurant looked at the equally shocked Gu Dajiang in astonishment. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 982, Father, your first county champion? It's him? How was this possible? Gu Dajiang was stunned. Yes, he was talented in reading. He had been smart since he was young. He had been greatly praised by his mentor. He had been affirmed by the head of the Tianhai Academy. He had been assured by the young genius top scholar, Qin Wenjing, that there was definitely no problem. However, he was sitting next to the toilet during the exam. He was the first to put down his brush and paper. He had not received the headmaster's guidance for many years. He had only entered the academy to study for half a year. Even so, he actually got first place, the county champion. The corners of Gu Dajiang's mouth couldn't help but crack. Then, he suddenly stood up. This time, he couldn't stay in the restaurant calmly anymore. He immediately ran downstairs. He wanted to take a look personally. He had to confirm it personally. When Yi Junkin saw him coming down the stairs, he could not hold it in any longer and ran down as well. Gu Dafeng was the third, followed by Yi Junkin's parents. Gu Yundong could not help but say to Qin Wenjing, "Help me take care of my mother and younger siblings." "Thank you." With that, she rushed down. Qin Wenjing, who had just left the stool and wanted to get off, was speechless. He silently sat back down, feeling a little angry that he was actually a step too late. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have kept his image, right? He could only turn his head and say to Madame Yang, Yun Shu, and the others, "Well, it's crowded below. It's easy for you to get lost. It's the same if we wait here." "Yes, master." Gu Yunshu and Bian Yuanji nodded at the same time. Although Madame Yang was still thinking about going down, Lu Hongxiu stopped her. Seeing that the three children had squeezed to the railing and were looking down, she quickly squeezed over. As expected, as soon as she lowered her head, she saw Gu Dajiang and the others rush out of the restaurant and walk towards the rankings one after another. Gu Yundong was fast and had already reached Gu Dajiang. But, she couldn't squeeze in at all. There were too many people. She had just squeezed in when she was pushed out again. As soon as she entered, she was pushed out again and further away. Gu Yundong held her forehead and stood on the spot to look around. Suddenly, she shouted, "Whose money fell to the ground?" As soon as she said this, many people subconsciously lowered their heads. Gu Yundong was delighted and took the opportunity to enter with Gu Dajiang. Fortunately, they were all strong. Once they squeezed through an opening, it would be much easier to move forward. Finally, after the few of them were covered in sweat, they finally stood 3 meters away from the rankings. Gu Yundong had good eyesight. She looked up and saw that her father's name was indeed in the first row. She immediately shouted happily. "You're really number one. Father, you're really number one, the county champion." Gu Yundong pointed at the rankings. "Did you see it? Gu Dajiang, your name." Gu Dajiang naturally saw it. His fingers trembled slightly. Gu Dafeng, who was beside him, grabbed his arm and pinched it very hard. She shouted excitedly, "Brother, it's you. It's your name. I recognize it. You're really too awesome." When the people beside them heard the commotion, they turned their heads with a whoosh and focused their gazes on them. County champion? So this person was Gu Dajiang? The eyes of the two people beside him constricted as they looked at him in shock. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 983, he's fourth. One of them couldn't help but touch him. "Why, your name is Gu Dajiang?" "Yes, it's me." Gu Dajiang finally came back to his senses. His face was filled with joy as his eyes landed on the rankings. That person's eyes widened. "Are you really Gu Dajiang? But you were beside the toilet during the exam. You even finished answering the questions and put down your brush and paper early. How can you be the county champion?" When the others heard this, they were even more shocked. His exam shed was by the latrine? Finishing the questions early? Are you serious? Gu Dajiang also recognized the two of them. Weren't they the people who had stood beside him when he left the examination hall and said firmly that he couldn't get in? Gu Dajiang couldn't help but puff out his chest. So what if the test shed is beside the toilet? As long as you answer the questions seriously and don't smell anything, you can naturally write like a god. Everyone was speechless. Gu Yundong thought of the 5 or 6 sachets he had brought with him during the second round of the exam. The corners of her mouth twitched. Forget it, since it was a joyous day, she would not expose it. However, the people around him quickly congratulated Gu Dajiang. Brother Gu, to be able to achieve such results despite such an environment and obtain the county championship, you're indeed admirable. Brother Gu, where are you studying now? I don't think we've seen you before. That's right, Brother Gu. We often hold poetry gatherings, but I didn't see you participate. If you came, we would have known you long ago. Gu Dajiang had interacted with the students in Tian High Academy for a long time and was already used to it. He replied politely, I usually live in the prefectural city and don't come back often. That's why I don't know you. So he was in the prefectural city. No wonder they felt that he was unfamiliar. However, they were also puzzled. At Gu Dajiang's age, it couldn't be his first time participating in the county examination, right? If he had participated in it before, they would have known him. Someone still wanted to ask, but a panting voice came from behind. Uncle Gu, is my name on it? It was Yi Junkin. In the end, he was one step behind Gu Dajiang. When he went downstairs, he couldn't squeeze in. In addition, he was young and thin, and his parents weren't farmers. Now that he had finally arrived, he was sweating profusely and in a sorry state. When Gu Yundong heard his voice, she quickly turned to look at the rankings. The first place was Gu Dajiang, and the second place was an unfamiliar name. Anyway, she didn't know. The third place was Yu Hongkai from Dongyi Academy, who Qin Wenjing had mentioned had a chance of becoming the county champion. The other person, Shao, was in 6th place. Yi Junkin was in 4th place. Gu Yundong was delighted. She immediately turned his head and said, You won too. You're 4th. Yi Junkin was stunned and immediately shouted happily, I got it too. Father, mother, I got it too. His parents were so happy that they cried. Yes. You got it too. Our son is too capable. Many people were attracted by them. It was said that he was 4th. Although he was not as good as the county champion, he was still in the top 10 of the county. It was also an honor. All of them were instantly envious. Moreover, this young man looked to be only 13 or 14 years old. He was so young. His future was probably even more limitless. Many people present knew Yi Junkin. They knew that he was studying in a very small school. However, they did not expect that the school would have such ability to nurture him into 4th place. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 984, Come Here. Yi Junkin was Qin Wensheng's student. With Qin Wensheng's guarantee, Gu Yundong knew that he would be fine. However, the 4th place was already very eye-catching. At the same time, her father was in 1st place. He was even more eye-catching and she was proud. If there were no major accidents, the county champion would not need to take the examination all the way to the court examination. He would enter school as usual and obtain the elementary scholar's honor. Her father was almost a confirmed elementary scholar. Father, let's go out first. Yun Shu and the others are still waiting. Okay. Let's go back first. Gu Dajiang hurriedly bade farewell to the examinees who were still talking to him. These people knew that such good news should be told to the family early, so they didn't stop him. Hence, a group of people squeezed out of the crowd. Gu Yundong's forehead was covered in sweat. She exhaled heavily, tidied her clothes, and hurried to the restaurant. The people upstairs had been waiting anxiously for a long time. They all looked downstairs. After Gu Yundong and the others came up, Yunshu and Yinka rushed over like cannonballs. Father, are they telling the truth? You're the county champion, right? Yes. Gu Dajiang was overjoyed and rubbed his little head. Yunshu was overjoyed. Father, you're the best. You have to work harder and win the prefecture examination and the court examination in one go. In the end, you'll be the top scorer in the royal palace examination. Father, do you know that you will win 6 consecutive examinations? Gu Dajiang, no, I don't know. I don't want to know either. Son, you really think highly of me. You're even talking about winning 6 consecutive examinations. Your father feels that his luck is heaven-defying to have obtained a county champion. Why do you make it sound like I'm already the top scholar? Gu Yundong coughed lightly and said to Yunshu, don't give father so much pressure. He's going to cry later. Yunshu blinked. Alright, he should ask for less from his father. On the other side, Yi Junkin also walked quickly to Qin Wenjing and bowed deeply. Teacher, I didn't let you down. Im ranked 4th. Qin Wenzheng's eyes lit up. Good job. He had expected Yi Junkin to enter the top 10 in the county. He had originally estimated that the kid would be ranked 7th or 8th. He did not expect him to be more hardworking than he had imagined and get 4th place. However, the person who surprised him the most was Gu Dajiang. He was indeed confident in Gu Dajiang, but Gu Dajiang had actually obtained the county champion. This gave him a huge surprise. Especially when he heard that Gu Dajiang's examination shed was near the latrine. Indeed, with Gu Dajiang's experience, his willpower was much better than ordinary young people. It's getting late. Since we already know our ranking, I think we should leave first. Otherwise, I'm afraid we won't be able to leave later. If everyone knew that the county champion was here, they would probably rush up soon. Gu Yundong also thought of it and hurriedly let her parents go downstairs. If there were too many people later, it would be bad if Madame Yang and the children were squeezed. The group of people took advantage of the fact that it was still crowded below and quickly got up to leave. However, as soon as they went down, they immediately realized that the entrance was blocked. Sure enough, someone had already walked in and shouted, "Where's the county champion? Where's the county champion?" Gu Yundong hurriedly took 2 steps back. Father, hide first. I'll ask where the back door is. She felt that these people who came to look for the county champion seemed very excited. Gu Dajiang had just nodded when someone beside him suddenly waved at them. Come here. Gu Yundong looked over. When she saw the person, her pupils constricted and she suddenly rushed towards him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 985, Coming Back to Marry You, Why Are You Back at This Time? Gu Yundong could not hide the joy on her face. She rushed to him and hurriedly stopped, maintaining a distance of 1 meter from him. Unfortunately, they were outside now. Otherwise, she would have hugged him. Shao Qingyuan looked travel-worn. His hair was a little messy, and his clothes were slightly wrinkled. There was a hint of fatigue on his face, but when he looked at Gu Yundong, his eyes were very gentle. He lowered his head slightly and said, I came back to marry you. With that, he quickly looked up and said to Gu Dajiang and the others, this is the back door. The carriage is waiting behind. Let's go back first. Okay. Although Gu Dajiang was also surprised by his sudden appearance, it was not the time to talk. He kept leading everyone to the back door. Shui Rong was already waiting there with a carriage. Beside him was Qin Wenzheng's carriage and Ah Mao, who had returned with Shao Qingyuan. They quickly got into the carriages. Shao Qingyuan held Gu Yundong's hand gently. His large hands were warm. Perhaps he had grabbed the reins when he was riding the horse, and there was a mark on his palm. Gu Yundong glanced at him and quickly got into the carriage. Gu Dajiang was in a good mood today. He found Shao Qingyuan much more pleasing to the eye and couldn't help but ask, when did you come back? Shao Qingyuan jumped onto the horse's back. He turned around and saw Gu Yunshu looking at him eagerly. He immediately carried him over and placed him in front of him. As he pulled the reins, he replied, I just entered the city. On the way, I heard many people say that today is the day of the county rankings. I thought that Uncle Gu would participate in the county test this year and that you would definitely come to see the rankings, so I came straight here to look for you. When he arrived, he happened to see them enter the restaurant. He also saw the scene of the other students looking for the restaurant. He knew that there was no way to leave from the front door, so he found Shui Rong and asked him to lead the carriage to the back door. Gu Dajiang nodded. Not bad. This man was quite considerate. Did your trip to the capital go well? Shao Qingyuan replied, everything went smoothly. After a pause, he said, congratulations, Uncle Gu, on winning the county championship. Gu Dajiang coughed lightly and couldn't help but smile. However, he was an elder and had to be steady. He couldn't let this brat see that he was very happy, so he nodded and lowered the curtain. Shao Qingyuan was speechless. Was he wrong to congratulate him? Gu Yunshu, who was in front of him, covered his mouth and giggled. He said softly, my father is shy. Shao Qingyuan couldn't imagine his future father-in-law being shy. The group of people quickly arrived at Qin Wenzheng's school. Qin Wenzheng wanted to have a good chat with Shao Qingyuan. After all, he had personally facilitated the man's trip to the capital. Although there was news from the capital about the cowpox vaccination method from time to time, it was not as clear as a personal demonstration. However, seeing that Shao Qingyuan only wanted to go back and talk to his future wife, the corners of Qin Wenzheng's mouth twitched. In the end, he dispelled this thought and suggested that they meet another day. The Gu family parted ways with Qin Wenzheng, Yi Junkin, and the others and headed back to Yongfu village. There were already many people gathered at the entrance of Yongfu village. Even the village chief, Chen Liang, was there. When he saw the carriage driving over from afar, he hurriedly ran forward. Brother Gu, you're finally back. The rankings have been posted, right? How is it? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 986. Good job. Many people in the village looked over with anxious eyes. Of course, there were also people who were secretly gloating. The Gu family had money, land, and shops. Their lives were already enviable. If Gu Dajiang also became an elementary scholar, wouldn't the Gu family be in heavens? Wouldn't the entire Yongfu village be surnamed Gu? It was said that Gu Dajiang's examination shed was close to the toilet. It would be strange if he could pass. Therefore, when someone asked what rank he got, someone who seemed to be kind but was actually stabbing a knife immediately said, Dajiang, it doesn't matter if you didn't perform well. There's still another year if you didn't pass this year. I heard that those in their 70s or 80s are still insisting. Don't give up. You're still young and your children are filial. When you enter the examination hall with Yunshu later, it might be a beautiful story. Most of the people could not tell. Some even nodded in agreement. That's right, that's right. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes. Shao Qingyuan looked directly at the person who had spoken just now. His sharp gaze was like a wild wolf's. That person only felt a chill on his neck. When he met the gaze, his expression instantly froze. He opened his mouth and muttered softly, why do I feel that this wolf cub is even more ferocious than before? Gu Dajiang had already alighted from the carriage. He didn't know how to answer everyone's questions. It was Yunka who came out later. She said very proudly, my father is the champion of the county. County champion? Chen Liang, who was standing at the front, was shocked. Did he hear wrongly just now? What did Yunka say? However, there were also people who did not understand what this county champion meant. They immediately frowned and said, what county champion? You didn't pass, right? Chen Liang suddenly turned around and shouted. He slapped his thigh hard. He didn't pass. The county champion is the first place in the county examination. He's the first place in our county. Brother Gu, you're good. What? First place? Really? Dajiang, you're amazing. This is a joyous occasion. Io, isn't he about to become an elementary scholar? There's actually a county champion in our village. A big shot has appeared. Brother Gu, you have to treat us. Let's have a good time together, right? Gu Dajiang opened his mouth. He had only passed one county examination. There was no need to do this. Gu Yundong also understood that it was not appropriate to be too high profile now. She immediately said, "There's no hurry for a celebration. When my father becomes an elementary scholar, we will naturally have to celebrate. My father still has to participate in the prefectural examination in April and really doesn't have time. He will rush to the prefectural city tomorrow or the day after." Qin Liang hurriedly said, "Yes, yes, yes. The prefectural examination is more important. We can't let other things affect your studies now." Then, he waved at the villagers. All right. Don't stand there. Go back and do your own things." The villagers still wanted to say something. This was the county champion. It was good to shake hands and bask in the joy. However, Qin Liang did not allow it. Everyone could only retreat regretfully and make way for the Gu family. Mao had already gotten off the horse and was stepping on the firm and flat ground. He couldn't help but stamp his feet and whisper to Shao Qingyuan, "Young master, this is the path that Miss has built. It's so comfortable to walk on." Shao Qingyuan nodded, looking proud. The Gu family finally returned home. Gu Dajiang heaved a sigh of relief. However, although the Gu family did not intend to treat the villagers, they still had to celebrate within the family. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 987, What did he do? Today, not only did Gu Dajiang get the county champion, but even Shao Qingyuan returned. This was a double blessing. She had to cook personally. Thus, the moment they reached home, Gu Yundong rubbed her palms together and entered the kitchen. Shao Qingyuan wanted to follow, but Gu Dajiang pulled him along and asked him many questions about what happened after he went to the capital. After the two of them chatted for a while, Shao Qingyuan left and walked to the kitchen. Gu Dafeng was also inside. She had a good impression of this junior, Shao Qingyuan. She could also tell that Shao Qingyuan had good taste and ability, especially since he was loyal to her Yundong and did not have a troublesome family by his side. If Yundong married him, it would be equivalent to having another member in the Gu family. Such a son-in-law was too rare. Therefore, when she saw him enter the kitchen, she knew that he must have a lot to say after being separated from Yundong for so long. She immediately smiled and called for the others in the kitchen to walk out together. She even considerately closed the door after leaving. As soon as she left, Shao Qingyuan went forward and pulled her into his arms from behind. Gu Yundong was kneading dough and her hands were still stained with flour. It was not appropriate to touch him. She could only turn her head slightly and look up at his eyebrows. "You've lost weight. Did you not listen to me and eat well?" Shao Qingyuan met her watery eyes and felt as if he was about to be sucked in. He said in a slightly hoarse voice, "Yes, but the food in the capital wasn't delicious." The food in the capital was not delicious? Why did this sound so unbelievable? "I want to eat your egg fried rice," he added. Gu Yundong was slightly stunned. Then, she remembered that when they first met, she had made him an egg fried rice and he looked very satisfied. Unexpectedly, he was still thinking about it often. "I'll make it for you in a minute." Shao Qingyuan couldn't help but look at the kitchen door. He lowered his head and kissed her. Gu Yundong pursed her lips and grabbed his clothes with her flour-stained hands. Shao Qingyuan was still unsatisfied when he let go of her, and the desire in his heart became more and more obvious. He looked down at her. "You said last time that we'd get married when I got back." "Yes, after my father passes the prefectural examination." "Okay." Shao Qingyuan didn't ask further. He looked down at the basin in front of her. "Let me help you." After saying that, he went to wash his hands and came back to knead for her. Gu Yindong decided to do something else. There were only the two of them in the kitchen. Eldest Aunt Gu would probably take a long time to come in. Gu Yindong asked him about the capital. Have you settled everything in the capital? Did you encounter any difficulties? Shao Qingyuan narrowed his eyes slightly and said calmly, No, I only made a suggestion. I still have to rely on the Imperial physicians from the Imperial hospital to implement it. Things are progressing very smoothly, so I can come back at this time. So the cowpox vaccination method passed? Yes, it did. I even met the current emperor. Gu Yindong was stunned and instantly became interested. You met the emperor? What does he look like? What's his personality like? The emperor was the highest leader of the country. Just thinking about it made her feel inexplicably excited. Shao Qingyuan laughed. He thought for a moment and said, His Majesty is a very decisive person. Decisive? Gu Yindong had long seen through this. However, what did he do to give Shao Qingyuan such a direct impression? What did he do? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 988, Is the Emperor Crazy? What did he do? Shao Qingyuan still found it unbelievable. He lowered his voice slightly and said, After the cowpox vaccination method was confirmed that it could prevent smallpox, the emperor ordered it to be popularized. Unfortunately, no one was willing to try it. Even if the imperial physicians said that there was no problem, even if it was an imperial edict from the emperor, even if the imperial physicians said that they had tested it on death row prisoners and it was absolutely foolproof, no one was willing to try it. After all, it could be fatal. What if they failed? If they failed, they would lose their lives. Moreover, this method was suggested by a country bumpkin. Others heard that this person was not even a doctor. The method he mentioned was unorthodox. Could it be used? Would anyone dare to use it? Not to mention those high-ranking officials and nobles, even the commoners were unwilling. Shao Qingyuan scoffed at this. He didn't propose such a preventive method for the sake of the world. If Yindong hadn't wanted him to make a contribution and urgently told Qin Wenjing about the method, Shao Qingyuan wouldn't even have mentioned it. He would only silently test it himself and inoculate the people close to him. What did the rest have to do with him? Even if these people died from smallpox, he didn't care. Just as Shao Qingyuan was about to bid farewell to Song Dajiang impatiently and return, the emperor in the palace suddenly made a bold decision that shocked him. The emperor let his 11-year-old son try the cowpox vaccination method. Gu Yindong's eyes widened in shock. He wanted the prince to do it himself? Yes. When this news spread, the entire capital was in an uproar. This prince was born by the empress and was the legitimate heir to the throne. How noble was his status? Moreover, the current emperor only had 3 children, one of whom was a princess. Was the emperor crazy? Everyone felt that the emperor was dissatisfied with the empress and that prince. It was only later that Shao Qingyuan found out that the prince had requested this himself. He did not know about the twists and turns in the palace, but he could more or less guess that this might not only be to tell the world about the effect of the cowpox vaccination method, but also for some other purposes. When Gu Yindong heard this, she fell into deep thought. Perhaps the emperor agreed because he wanted the world to see this prince's courage and contribution to the world. He might be paving the way for him, building his reputation. But no matter what, Gu Yindong could not help but admire the courage of this father and son. But then, a trace of anger surged in her heart. What if this method didn't succeed? Then the first person to be convicted would be her Shao Qingyuan. What if someone wanted to harm that prince and succeeded with the cowpox vaccination method? Wouldn't everyone still have to make Shao Qingyuan take the blame? Sure enough, politics were too dirty. If they were not careful, they might become cannon fodder. What happened next? Shao Qingyuan could tell that there was a hint of dissatisfaction in her tone. He turned to look at her and smiled. I naturally succeeded in the end. The emperor rewarded me, so I came back. Gu Yindong nodded. It's good that you're back. Let's stay away from these things in the future. Next time, let Qin Wenjing go alone. At most, you'll write down the method and let him figure it out himself. Shao Qingyuan, after a moment of silence, he said, actually, I came back this time with the Emperor's decree. I have something to do. Gu Yundong's hand froze. Damn it, it's not over yet? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 989. He really knows how to make the best use of everything. Gu Yundong frowned slightly. What decree? The cowpox vaccination method has been confirmed. It can indeed prevent smallpox. Naturally, we have to promote it vigorously, Shao Qingyuan said. It's not only in the capital. It's the same in other places. Our Xuanhe Prefecture is naturally no exception. There was the Emperor and the Imperial physicians in the capital who endorsed it, and the Prince had personally tested it. There was no longer any problem. However, the Emperor directly handed the Xuanhe Prefecture to Shao Qingyuan. He was the most experienced and familiar with the cowpox vaccination method. Therefore, the Emperor issued an imperial edict and asked Prefecture Magistrate Dai of Xuanhe Prefecture to cooperate with Shao Qingyuan to inoculate the commoners of the county towns and villages that were subordinate to the Xuanhe Prefecture. Not only that, but in order to spread the cowpox vaccination method throughout the country, the Emperor gave the various prefectural cities great pressure and asked the government office to register and count the people who had been vaccinated. Half a year later, if the number of people registered in the prefectural city was minimal, they would have to report it and leave a record. At that time, the local government's evaluation of incompetence would very likely affect their future promotion. Of course, if the number of people registered exceeded 1/3, they would be rewarded by the imperial court. Gu Yundong almost fainted when she heard that. The Emperor was really good at finding trouble for them. His decision. Wasn't he worried that some prefecture magistrates will go to extremes and force those unwilling citizens to be vaccinated for the reward? Wasn't he worried that they will focus on this and not care about anything else? Shao Qingyuan had already kneaded the flour and covered the basin with a cloth. That's why the Emperor will send a team of imperial guards to the various government offices to assist. Although it was said to be assisting, it was actually to supervise. Not only the imperial guards, but there will also be an imperial physician who is familiar with the cowpox vaccination method coming to the various prefectural cities. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. Then, she seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly asked, then which imperial physician is coming to the Xuanhe Prefecture? Is Song Dajiang here? Me. Gu Yundong, what do you mean? When did you become an imperial physician? Shao Qingyuan explained, I'm not an imperial physician, but am more familiar with the cowpox vaccination method than an imperial physician is. The Emperor said that there aren't many imperial physicians in the imperial hospital. The palace needs them, and so does the capital. Therefore, no other imperial physicians will come from the Xuanhe Prefecture. They'll cooperate with the prefecture magistrate. Moreover, they won't send the imperial guards because Qin Wenjing is here. Gu Yundong cursed in her heart. The current emperor really knew how to make the best use of everything. After using Qin Wenjing, he started to have designs on Shao Qingyuan. Not a good thing. Shao Qingyuan saw that she was furious and did not say the last sentence. In fact, when the emperor made this decision, he also said one sentence, I heard that your fiancée is also an extremely smart girl. Even Minister Qin praised her endlessly and was tricked by her twice. You are also a rare talent. I believe that there will be no problem if I leave this matter to you. At that time, Shao Qingyuan had the urge to beat Qin Wenjing up. He must have reported this matter to the emperor. Otherwise, how could the emperor remember his Yundong? However, Yundong was busy, so Shao Qingyuan did not plan to let her worry. Therefore, he would discuss this matter with Qin Wenjing and carry out the emperor's decree. This matter is a little urgent. Tomorrow or the day after, I have to go to the prefectural city. When are you going? I'll pack up tomorrow and go to the prefectural city the day after tomorrow. Alright, let's go together. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 990, Gu Dajiang's obsession. After the two of them finished the discussion, footsteps sounded outside the kitchen. Soon, Gu Dafeng pushed open the door. When she entered and saw the two of them working, she immediately smiled. Qingyuan, Yundong's father is calling for you. Hurry up and go. We're here. Shao. Qingyuan washed his hands. All right, thank you, eldest aunt. I'll go talk to Uncle Gu first. Go. Gu Dafeng waved her hand. After they left, she looked meaningfully at Gu Yundong. The latter silently turned her back to her. Eldest aunt, we didn't do anything. You have to trust us. What are you shy about? Gu Dafeng leaned behind her and said with a smile, it's been so long since you last met. It's fine for you to talk. Eldest aunt has been there before, and the two of you are engaged. It's fine. No one gossips at home. Gu Yundong coughed lightly. Eldest aunt, be more reserved. She sped up her actions and went to the cupboard to get the eggs. At the same time, she avoided eldest aunt Gus' mysterious smile. That night, the Gu family was very excited. Gu Dajiang had won the county case. This was something he had never thought of before. To him, it was like fulfilling a dream. Many years ago, before he went to the county exam, he was directly forbidden by his parents and the patriarch from going out. All his efforts were for naught. No one knew that taking the Imperial examination had actually become an obsession that he had buried in the bottom of his heart. Now that his wish had been fulfilled and his results were so gratifying, he was happy. Really, he was especially happy. Coupled with the fact that his life was getting better and better with his family by his side, his mood was very complicated. He could not help but drink a few more glasses of wine. In the end, he actually felt a little drunk. Gu Yundong was still worried when she helped him back to his room. She stretched out a hand and asked him, Father, how many is this? Do you really think I'm drunk? It's just a few glasses of wine. Why are you worrying for nothing? How many is this? Gu Yundong insisted. Gu Dajiang sighed. 3, I can see clearly. I'm not seeing things. All right, you've been busy for the entire day. Hurry up and rest. Your mother will take care of me from here. Only then did Gu Yundong relax slightly. Mother, if father is not feeling well, you have to go out and call us, understand? Yes, I know. Madame Yang nodded obediently. Gu Yundong then turned around and left the room. As soon as the door closed, Gu Dajiang collapsed on the bed. Madame Yang helped him take off his coat. Unexpectedly, just as she reached out, he wrapped his arms around her waist and pressed her down. Lun Yang, I am happy today. Teacher and old tribe leader can finally be at ease. I did not let them down, I have the face to meet them in the future. This is great, this is great. Madame Yang blinked and slowly wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes. Then, she kissed his eyes. Dajiang is the best in the world. Gu Dajiang smiled even more happily. He held her face and said gently, Lun Yang too. Gu Yundong hid outside and listened attentively for a moment. After being fed a mouthful of dog food, she rubbed her arms and quickly left. However, the corners of her lips curled up slightly. Their lives would definitely get better and better in the future. The next day, as expected, Gu Dajiang woke up late. When he went out, his head still hurt. It was only when the kitchen brought him some hangover soup that he felt slightly better. Dong Shilan came at this time, but her expression didn't seem right. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 991, Don't worry, I didn't agree. Gu Yundong found it strange and was about to ask. However, Dong Shilan quickly put on a smile and handed over the basket in her hand. Your father won the county championship. Your family was busy yesterday, so I couldn't disturb you. Take this. It's a congratulatory gift. Not only were there vegetables, fruits, and eggs in the basket, but there was also a red packet. Although it's not much, this is a token of my appreciation. You must accept it. 300 copper coins was indeed not much for Gu Yundong. However, to Dong Xiulan, it was already a very thick red packet. Gu Yundong accepted it and let her in. Dong Xiulan happened to have something to ask Gu Dajiang, so she followed her into the central room. Brother Gu, is the county examination difficult? Gu Yundong poured her a cup of tea and sat opposite her. She could not help but look at her in surprise. Aunt, why are you asking this? Here it goes. I'm thinking if I should let my eldest son take the exam too. Although we don't plan to let him become an elementary scholar or high scholar, it's good for him to be a preparation scholar. If he becomes the preparation scholar, he can also be a private school teacher who enlightens children. I can be at ease. In the beginning, the Xing family had really never thought of taking the Imperial examination. They just felt that it would be easy to find work later if he could read. Didn't they see that all the employees in Yundong's shop had to read and record accounts? However, when they saw that Gu Dajiang had won the county championship, the entire village was in a heated discussion. They felt very excited and proud. Dong Xiulan couldn't help but be tempted. Gu Dajiang was very supportive of such things. If Xing Jia has such thoughts, I can tell him about the county examination. As for whether it's easy or not, I'll have to try it to know. I can only say that there are hundreds of students participating in the county examination, but only 50 are on the rankings in the end. Madame Dong really didn't know about this. She was a little surprised. 50 out of a few hundred? Didn't this mean that if he wanted to be on the rankings, he had to be in the top 50 of the county? This was too difficult. She hesitated again. Gu Yundong said, Xing Jia is still young. He can still study for a few more years. Aunt, you don't have to be in such a hurry. Dong Xiulan nodded. That's true. I have to go back and ask him. With that, she stood up and was about to leave. Gu Yundong sent her out. Dong Xiulan asked her to stop and walked towards her house. Unexpectedly, just as she was about to enter her courtyard, someone suddenly came out from the side and pulled her over. Dong Xiulan exclaimed, what are you doing? Gu Yundong was about to turn around when she heard the voice. She immediately looked up, but she only saw Dong Xiulan being pulled to the corner. As for the person who pulled her, Dong Xiulan blocked them and she could not see clearly. Gu Yundong was shocked and quickly scolded, What are you doing? Let go of her. As she spoke, Gu Yundong strode towards the Dong family. However, when she turned the corner, she only saw Dong Xiulan standing there alone. The person who had pulled her away had already left. Aunt, are you all right? Gu Yundong quickly looked down at her. Dong Xiulan waved her hand. It's okay, it's okay. I'm fine. Gu Yundong frowned. Who was that person just now? Do you know them? Are they from our village or an outsider? Did they want to harm you? Dong Xiulan quickly shook her head. No. She's from our village and asked me for help, but don't worry, I didn't agree. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 992, Thick-skinned Gu Yundong was stunned. She had always been sharp. From what Dong Xiulan said, the person who asked her for help seemed to have something to do with her. Otherwise, why would Dong Xiulan reassure her? Dong Xiulan did not realize what she had exposed. She pulled Gu Yundong out. All right, it's fine. Go back. Didn't you say that you're going to the prefectural city? Hurry up and prepare the things. I'll go take a look at Qingyuan. Brother Shao has gone to the county town. Gu Yundong pulled her back. Auntie, why did that person ask you for help? It has something to do with me, right? Do they want to enter the workshop, or be a shop assistant, or grow fruit trees in an orchard? Dong Xiulan was stunned. How did Yundong know that the person's request had something to do with her? She didn't want to answer. No, no. It has nothing to do with you. If Auntie doesn't tell me, I'll take it that the people from the other villages have ulterior motives and I'll go to look for the village chief. Gu Yundong was about to leave when Dong Xilan hurriedly grabbed her. She couldn't dissuade her, so she sighed and said irritably, "It's someone from our village." That person just now was the wife of the second son of the Li family. The second son of the Li family? Who was that? Seeing that she had not thought of him, Dong Xilan quickly reminded her, "It's the family that adopted Qingyuan, the second son of the Li family." Gu Yundong did not like the Li family at all. Hearing this, she frowned. "Haven't we never interacted? Why are they looking for you?" "The second son of the Li family is about to get married. He's marrying Yes niece, He Shao. I don't know what they're thinking. They want me to make peace in front of Qingyuan and let him attend the wedding banquet. They even said that what Eldest Li and his wife did was unforgivable, but they didn't harm Qingyuan. No matter what, Qingyuan has called them second uncle and second aunt for so many years. They're all relatives and should get along." Gu Yundong? Relatives? In the past, when Shao Qingyuan lived alone in the straw hut, why didn't second uncle and second aunt say that they were relatives? Moreover, the last time she went to old Master Li's house to cause a scene, she seemed to have exposed old Master Li's true colors, right? Shao Qingyuan had a grudge against old Master Li. As his son, how could he have the cheek to say that they were relatives? Indeed, the charm of money was irresistible. If Shao Qingyuan was still a poor kid without money, they wouldn't have to go through this. However, this was not the end, Dong Xilan continued, there's also the He family. They heard that Zhuangzi's family went to the prefectural city and insisted that I come to look for you. They said that they wanted you to send a message to Dajiang and his wife so that they could come back for the wedding banquet. They said that there was some unhappiness last time. They wanted to take this opportunity to reconcile. The He family really didn't know that Zhuangzi's family had gone to the prefectural city. They thought that Dajiang and his wife were at least staying at home. Unexpectedly, when they came over, the house was locked. Gu Yundong was speechless. So severing ties was a joke. These two families really knew how to find soft persimmons to bully. They knew that Dong Xilan had a good relationship with them and was soft and easy to talk to, so they asked her to persuade them. No wonder Auntie's expression was not good when she entered just now. "Auntie, you don't have to worry about it. In any case, we're going to the prefectural city tomorrow. They won't be able to find us." Dong Xilan nodded. "I know. I didn't plan to agree to them either. They're just too annoying." She would go to the workshop in a while. The second son of the Li family's wife did not dare to look for her in the workshop anyway. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 993, Awkward Situation. Gu Yundong did not care about the marriage between the Li family and the He family, let alone their unreasonable request. The next day, the Gu family and the Shao family drove the carriage away from Yongfu village. They left early and set off before dawn. However, not long after they left, second brother Li and his wife slowly arrived at the foot of the mountain. They first poked their heads in front of the Shao family's door for a while. In the end, they were a little afraid and did not dare to enter. After some thought, they ran to the Gu family's door. The Gu family's main door was open, and the concierge, Father Tong, was also there. Li Dunzi took a few steps forward, but when he saw Father Tong looking over, he quickly retreated. His wife, Madame Du, suddenly patted him. "What are you doing? Hurry up and say something." Father Tong frowned. Of course, he knew these two people. They were from the second branch of the Li family. Didn't they have a grudge against the young master? They were probably here to cause trouble, right? At the thought of this, Father Tong immediately walked towards them. "What do you want?" The two of them were shocked. They turned around and ran off. Father Tong was speechless. As expected, they were up to no good. It looked like they had a guilty conscience. The old master and young lady had just left, and only the two young masters had gone to the county to study. He had to talk to the two young masters later and ask them to pay attention to these two people. With that thought in mind, Father Tong quickly entered the house. As for Li Dunzi and his wife, after running a few steps, they suddenly realized that they were here to look for the Gu family. Why were they scared away by an old man? Madame Du slapped him hard again. You only have the guts of a rat. Useless, useless. All right, stop hitting me. If you have the guts, go forward. Madame Du did not dare. Be it Shao Qingyuan or Gu Yundong, they were not to be trifled with. However, there was nothing they could do. They really could not live like this anymore. Although they had drawn a clear line with the eldest branch, after the things that the old man had done were exposed, their branch was also criticized. Seeing that the villagers' lives were getting better and better, but they were getting worse and worse, the envy in their hearts could kill them. However, if that was all, it would be fine. The problem was that the Li family was ostracized. Many families in Yongfu village worked for the Gu family. Even if they did not work for them, they hoped that they would be chosen to enter the workshop and shop one day. Therefore, they kept a respectful distance from the Li family, who did not get along with the Gu family. Of course, there were also some people who could not stand the Gu family and badmouthed them behind their backs. These people were willing to interact with the Li family, but Li Dunzi was unwilling to mix with them. They had personally seen Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan teach their eldest brother and sister-in-law a lesson, so they did not have the courage to go against the Gu family. Besides, didn't they see that the village chief was also on the Gu family's side? The Gu family also knew the big shots in the county city and the prefectural city. Wouldn't it be easy to deal with people like them? Just like that, the second and third branches of the Li family became awkward. Not only were their lives poor, but even their son's marriage had become a huge problem. It was not easy to settle down with He Xiao. He Xiao was He Yes' niece. He Yes' family and the Gu family were so close. Perhaps they could ease their relationship on account of He. Unexpectedly, the entire Shi family had gone to the prefectural city. Therefore, they could only look for Shao Qingyuan and Gu Yundong themselves, hoping that they would come to support their son on his wedding day. This way, everyone would know that their family actually had a good relationship with the Shao and Gu families and would not have a difficult time. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 994, we have something for Shao Qingyuan Li Dunzi and his wife's side. After looking at each other, they turned around and wanted to walk back to the Gu residence. Dong Shilan had just left the house when she saw them. She quickly went forward and said, "Why are you here again? Are you still not giving up?" Madame Du was a little angry when she saw her. If she hadn't refused to help, the couple wouldn't have come here. Don't worry about it. Since you're unwilling to help, we'll do it ourselves. We're not trying to harm Qingyuan and the others. Is it wrong to invite them to the wedding? Dong Shilan frowned. You guys should leave. Qingyuan and Yundong have already left Yongfu village and returned to the prefectural city. What? He left? Li Dunzi couldn't help but exclaim. Madame Du grabbed Dong Xiaolan's hand and asked anxiously, why did he leave? When did he leave? Why didn't we see him? They left early this morning. It must have been more than 2 hours. Li Dunzi and Madame Du looked at each other and couldn't help but slap their thighs. There was a main road from the Gu family to the outside of the village. There was no need to pass through the village at all, so no one saw when they left. They were too late. Dong Shilan saw their vexed expressions and thought that they should have given up since they couldn't find her. Hence, she withdrew her arm from Madame Du's hand and walked towards the workshop. She still had work to do, so she had no time to care about their entanglement. Unexpectedly, after taking a few steps, Madame Du stopped her again. Zheng He's wife, wait. What else do you want? Dong Shilan was impatient. Madame Du glanced at Li Dunzi. After a moment, she gritted her teeth and said, "You, help us pass a message to them and invite them to the wedding banquet." Dong Xilan suspected that there was something wrong with her ears, and her face was filled with disbelief. In the past, the second branch of the Li family did not seem so unreliable. She had already said that they returned to the prefectural city, but they still wanted them to work themselves to death to rush back. On what basis? What were they thinking? Dream on. I say, Li Dunzi, although you didn't harm Qingyuan when he was young, you must have made a lot of sarcastic remarks. It's fine if he didn't argue with you, but you're still rushing to find trouble with him now, right? What makes you think he will listen to you? Do you think they have to come just because you asked him to attend the wedding banquet? Your brains must have been kicked by a donkey. With that, Dong Xilan walked around Madame Du and was about to leave. Unexpectedly, when they passed by Madame Du, she suddenly said, "We have something for him." Dong Xilan was stunned and stopped in her tracks. What do you mean? Madame Du glanced at Li Dunzi and said, "Back then, when the old man brought him back, he actually had something on him. Later on, when the old man wasn't paying attention, I took a handkerchief. We thought that the handkerchief might have been left behind by Qingyuan's biological parents and was related to his background." Dong Xilan's eyes widened and her breathing quickened. Are you serious? What about the handkerchief? It was about Qingyuan's background. She definitely had to get it back. It might be an important clue. At that time, Qingyuan would be able to find his parents. Dong Xilan was excited. Qingyuan had suffered for so many years and had no parents. If he could find them now, wouldn't that be a great thing? She suddenly looked at Li Dunzi and his wife. "Give me that handkerchief." "I'll give it to Qingyuan." Madame Du said, "Of course I hid the handkerchief well. I can't give it to you." Dong Xilan was a little angry. This couple was not good people. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 995, Letter. They had hidden such an important handkerchief for so many years and refused to take it out. If he had given it to Qingyuan earlier, he might have been able to find his parents earlier. Madame Du was a little shocked by her resentful gaze and could not help but take a step back. Li Dunzi braced himself and said, "We won't give it to you, but we will give it to Qingyuan. As long as you bring them a letter and let them come back for the wedding banquet, we will definitely hand the handkerchief to him personally." Dong Xilan pursed her lips unhappily. That belongs to Qingyuan to begin with. Instead of returning it to him, you even took the opportunity to threaten him. How can this be called a threat? Madame Du was dissatisfied, but she lowered her voice and said, "Even if we pick up things on the streets and return them to the owner, can't we ask them to express their gratitude? We're not asking him to give us money or anything. We even invited him to the wedding banquet." Dong Xilan sneered. "Did you pick it up? You took it directly from him. But if we hadn't taken it, that handkerchief might have been burned by my father long ago and nothing would have been left. Back then, when old Master Li brought the child back, he threw away and burnt everything on him. Not a single strand of hair was left. If not for her sharp eyes, she wouldn't have seen the handkerchief when she was wiping the baby's body. Thinking that her son had just been born and the material of this handkerchief was good, it was very suitable for children to use, so she quietly put it away. Otherwise, the handkerchief would have turned to ashes long ago. Shao Qingyuan would never know his true identity. Dong Xilan was so angry that she couldn't speak, but what the woman said made sense. Moreover, this matter concerned Qingyuan after all, so she took a deep breath and said, "All right, I'll help deliver the message. But whether they decide to come back or not is their own business." "Hey, thank you, sister." Madame Du immediately smiled and became happy. Dong Xilan felt very upset and turned around to go home. She did not dare to delay. She quickly got her son to bring out a brush and paper and wrote a letter to Qingyuan. After he finished writing, she instructed Jia to keep it a secret and not tell anyone. Then, she took the letter and headed to the Gu family's workshop. There was no one in the Shao family. Mao and the others had left with Shao Qingyuan. There were only Father Tong and a few women left in the Gu family. The only people Dong Xiulan could trust to help with this matter were Tong Ping and Tong, and unexpectedly, when she arrived at the workshop, the two of them were not around. Dong Xiulan felt that it was a pity. If they were here, they might have been able to catch up to Yundong and the others on horses. She could only go home for the time being and put the letter away. Xingjia saw that she was a little anxious and quickly comforted her. "Mother, there's no hurry. No matter what, Li Dunzi and his wife will only give the handkerchief to Brother Shao on the big day a month later. Whether we send the letter a day later or a day earlier, they will have to wait a month before returning." "You have a point." Dong Xiulan nodded and settled down. She settled down and went to the workshop to work. As she worked, she waited for Tong Ping and his brother to return. Unexpectedly, she waited until night. When Tong Ping heard that she had a letter for Shao Qingyuan, he quickly promised to deliver it tomorrow. The Gu family would make a trip to the prefectural city to deliver the goods every few days. It just so happened that tomorrow was the day Tong Ping and the others would deliver the goods. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 996, Difficult. The next night, Shao Qingyuan and Gu Yundong received Dong Xiaolan's letter. The two of them were a little surprised. They could not care less about the fatigue of the day and hurriedly opened the letter. After reading it, the two of them were stunned. "The second son of the Li family actually has your things?" Gu Yundong's face was filled with disbelief. Shao Qingyuan frowned slightly and shook his head. "When old Li carried me home, he exchanged clothes with the third young master of the Tao family. That handkerchief might belong to the third young master of the Tao family. But it's also possible that it's yours." Gu Yundong was unwilling to let go of the only clue. After reading the letter just now, eldest brother Shao's eyes clearly lit up. This meant that he was actually looking forward to finding his biological parents. Since that was the case, what did it matter if he searched? Perhaps brother Shao's family was still looking for him after so many years? No matter what, it's just a guess now. Since the second son of the Li family wants us to attend the wedding banquet, we'll go there in a month. We'll know the results after we get that handkerchief and investigate. Shao Qingyuan nodded. "Okay. Say, if the second son of the Li family has your things, does that mean that the first son has something too?" "I don't think so. Even if there was, I'm afraid they sold it," Shao Qingyuan said. "After old Li died, I searched first brother Li's house in order to find out his background, but I didn't find anything. Moreover, Auntie Dong's letter also said that old man Li had burned all the clothes and items he was wearing back then, leaving nothing behind. It was an accident that second brother Li could obtain that handkerchief. Moreover, first brother Li was a person who was afraid of death. If he really had something of Shao Qingyuan's, he would definitely use it as a bargaining chip when Shao Qingyuan went to beat him up." Gu Yundong felt a little regretful. It seemed that they could only wait until they saw second brother Li in a month. "There's no hurry." Shao Qingyuan placed the letter on the candle and lit it. After watching it gradually burn to ashes, he said, "On the other hand, the cowpox vaccination can't wait. Tomorrow, we'll go to the Dai residence first and convey the emperor's decree to Lord Dai." Speaking of this, Gu Yundong felt a headache. The emperor was too good at giving people trouble. This is not easy to do. After all, no one has ever tried the cowpox vaccination. Everyone is afraid of death, and I'm afraid no one is willing to be the first test subject. Even if the emperor spoke the truth and the prince personally verified it, the distance is still too far. For most people, it's less convincing if they don't see it with their own eyes. Some people could get smallpox, but some people wouldn't. Even if they did, they might be able to survive. Everyone would think that they were the lucky ones. The cowpox vaccination method was just a prevention method, and it was a method that they had never seen before. Who was willing to take the risk? What if it failed and they died? The problem was that the emperor had also issued a decree that they could not use too rough a method. There were only 4 words on Gu Yundong's mind: subdue people with virtue. As expected, they went to the Dai residence the next day. After Gu Yundong went to look for Madame Dai, Shao Qingyuan met the Prefecture Magistrate. After hearing the decree brought by Shao Qingyuan, the Prefecture Magistrate frowned fiercely. The first sentence was, "This matter is not easy to handle." He sighed and walked around twice. Finally, he stood in front of Shao Qingyuan and asked him, "Do you have an idea?" "There is one. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 997, It's Good If You Can't Get It. There was one. The Prefecture Magistrate instantly perked up and looked at him with burning eyes. Shao Qingyuan said, "At the end of the day, this matter is beneficial to the country and the people. However, the people don't believe us in their hearts. If we take the initiative to say that we want to help others with vaccination, I'm afraid they will still suspect that nothing good will happen. In that case, we might as well do the opposite and make people want it but can't get it. The people will take the initiative to ask for the inoculation. How do we take the initiative?" Prefecture Magistrate Dai was interested. What he said made sense. Shao Qingyuan whispered, "Tell them a story." "Huh? A story?" Prefecture Magistrate Dai was a little disappointed for a moment. He thought that he had an awesome extra idea, but it was just telling a story. But he asked anyway. "What story?" Shao Qingyuan told the story in a low voice. Prefecture Magistrate Dai nodded as he listened. A moment later, his eyes lit up. After hearing this, he suddenly clapped his hands. "Good, good. It's indeed a good way to lure people in. Let's do that. How about this? Write down the content first. Later, I'll get someone to find a storyteller to tell the story at the largest tea house in the prefectural city." Shao Qingyuan nodded, walked behind the desk, and picked up a pen. However, just as he finished the first line, he was despised by the Prefecture Magistrate. Hey, your writing is too plain. We have to be passionate, exciting, and high. Go to the side. I'll write. I'll do it." Shao Qingyuan stood up and looked at the first line of words he had written. The cowpox vaccination method is a new method to prevent smallpox. It has already begun to become popular in the capital. Yes, it was indeed a little plain. He then looked at the first sentence written by the Prefecture Magistrate. As we know, our Dajiang is becoming more and more prosperous. The lives of the people are thriving day by day and have greatly improved. This is all because our emperor is a wise and mighty emperor who cares about the world. Ever since the emperor ascended the throne, he has worked hard for everyone to live a good life. Let's talk about the cowpox vaccination method. Shao Qingyuan frowned slightly. Although it likely consisted of flattery, it was much better than what he had written. Forget it, let's follow what the Prefecture Magistrate wrote first. The more Prefecture Magistrate Dai wrote, the more excited he became. The more he wrote, the more comfortable he became. In the end, he wrote 7 to 8 pages before stopping. He handed the papers to Shao Qingyuan. "Take a look. How's my writing?" Shao Qingyuan took it. To be honest, it was a little profound. However, it was definitely much better than his work. In any case, he could not write it. At the very least, the Prefecture Magistrate had written down the gist he wanted to express clearly. When he got back, he would let the storyteller speak more emotionally. It would definitely be very effective. Shao Qingyuan nodded. Lord Dai is so literary. Huh, your story is good. Lord Dai is good at writing. That's not worth mentioning. Thankfully, you came up with such a good idea. Dai Wenhua, who had just reached the door of the study, happened to hear the two of them praising each other. The corners of his mouth could not help but twitch. He knocked on the door until someone came in. Then, he pushed the door open and entered. He looked at the two of them and said, "It's getting late. Mother asked me to look for you to eat in the reception hall." The Prefecture Magistrate suddenly realized that it was already past noon after writing for so long. Yes. Let's eat first and discuss the rest later." As he spoke, the the prefecture magistrate took the lead and walked out. After taking a few steps, he returned and brought the papers with him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 998, Prefecture Magistrate Deus. Flattery is too ruthless. Madame Dai and Gu Yundong were already sitting in the reception pavilion talking. When they saw them, they quickly stood up. The prefecture magistrate had already seen Gu Yundong. He immediately smiled and waved his hand. There's no need to be so polite. Everyone, sit down and eat first. After Gu Yundong sat down, she could not help but glance at Shao Qingyuan. She asked, "Have you discussed it with Uncle Dai?" "Yes." Before Shao Qingyuan could answer, the prefecture magistrate spoke first. He looked even happier than Shao Qingyuan. "Qingyuan is indeed a talent. He gave me a good idea." Everyone in the reception pavilion was family. The prefecture magistrate didn't hide anything and told them the results of their discussion in the study. Madame Dai nodded repeatedly. "That's true. It's better to do the opposite than to take the initiative to promote it. Isn't that so? If we directly put up an announcement or find a large number of people to persuade the commoners, the effect will not be much. We don't have the time and energy. Now, let the storyteller use his words to attract people and leave an extremely deep impression. Especially, let's tell the commoners that the vaccination time is limited and the number of people is limited. In order to snatch a spot, the commoners will eagerly participate." People were like this. People would be more anxious about limiting their purchases, afraid that such a good thing would not happen to them. However, if there were no restrictions and someone even told them that this was a mission given by the higher-ups and had to be completed, these people would feel that it might be disadvantageous to them. To be honest, Gu Yundong did not know this method either. She couldn't help but glance at Shao Qingyuan and ask them, "Then how do you plan to tell the story?" Prefecture Magistrate Dai laughed. "We've already written it down. Come, let me show you." He immediately handed over the few pages filled with words. Shao Qingyuan took a look. No wonder the prefecture magistrate had brought these pages with him when he went out previously. It turned out that he was showing off. Gu Yundong and the other two took it. Madame Dai and Dai Wenhua looked at it and nodded slightly, indicating that it was not bad. The writing is clear and smooth, the storyline is clear, and the logic is fine. The story is very voluptuous, the poems are quoted appropriately, and the beginning and end echo each other. Good. Gu Yundong was speechless. What should she do? Seeing that his wife and son had finished talking, the prefecture magistrate was still very satisfied. In the end, his gaze landed on Gu Yundong, but he saw that after she finished reading, her expression was strange and constipated. Prefecture Magistrate Dai's heart skipped a beat. Was there a problem? He thought that he had written it quite well and checked it once. There shouldn't be any typos. Well, Gu girl, how's my story? Gu Yundong could not bear to see him disappointed. He racked his brains and finally said, "There are quite a lot of praises for the emperor. Uncle Dai's vocabulary is very amazing." The four people present were speechless. Forget it, it was better not to praise him. They were just short of saying that the prefecture magistrate's flattery was too ruthless. The prefecture magistrate wiped his face. You'd better tell the truth. I can still listen the truth. After all, this matter is very important. We have to be careful at every step. If this story is not good, we won't be able to achieve the effect we want. It won't be good for the vaccination method. We would have worked for nothing. Madame Dai hurriedly said, yes. Yundong, you have big ideas. Tell us what's wrong. If it's not good, we can change it in time. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 999, Ill-Right. Gu Yundong's gaze swept past the four of them one by one. After a while, she said softly, then. I'll be frank. Go ahead. Even Shao Qingyuan looked at her eagerly. He felt that this idea was not bad, but if Yundong said no, he would quickly think of something else. Gu Yundong coughed lightly. There's nothing wrong with the story. It's just that it's not fascinating enough. The prefecture magistrate quickly leaned forward. How is it not enough? Uncle, our story is mainly for the commoners to hear. Most of the commoners can't read. Even if they know, they can't understand words that are too profound, especially these poems. We can understand them, but the commoners might not understand them. It was a story. Of course, it had to be simple and straightforward. It shouldn't be too pedantic. In that case, it makes sense. The prefecture magistrate nodded slightly and heard Gu Yundong continue. After all, a story is different from an article. In addition to being logical, the most important thing in the book is to set up suspense to attract people's attention so that people can guess and look forward to the next plot. What's more, the first sentence is especially important. It's best to be concise and straightforward and get to the point. The words are too gorgeous, making people sleepy. The prefecture magistrate, who felt that his first sentence was very interesting, was speechless. Shao Qingyuan, who felt that the prefecture magistrate's writing was much better than his, was speechless. Madame Dai and young Master Dai, who felt that the first sentence would definitely make the emperor happy, were speechless. This first sentence seemed to be, indeed, not concise enough. The prefecture magistrate felt that he had been dealt a blow. He took the papers and looked at them again. Suddenly, he felt bored. He was indeed a person who could listen to advice. He immediately asked humbly, "Then in your opinion, how should I write it?" Dai Wenhua said, "We're not good at writing novels. Why don't we find a scholar who's good at writing novels?" Gu Yundong waved her hand. "No need. I'll write it. When I'm done, you can take a look. If it doesn't work, well, find someone else to try." After all, she had read so many novels and news. This story was not long. She was good at attracting attention. "All right, write it first." Madame Dai glanced at them. "What are you writing?" "Eat first. There's still time to write after you're done." Seriously, did all of them forget that they were hungry? She hurriedly asked the servants to serve the food for the guests. Gu Yundong thought about it as she ate. The others remained silent and ate very quickly. Not long after Gu Yundong finished her meal, she took the papers into the study. No one disturbed her and let her write slowly. They continued to discuss the following process. Gu Yundong held her brush and thought for a moment. Finally, she wrote the first sentence on the paper. As we know, something big happened in the capital some time ago. Gu Yundong was not a professional writer, but at least her work was more like a storybook than the one written by the prefecture magistrate. She moved quickly. Anyway, she had prefecture magistrate Dai's sample. She changed the way she wrote slightly and adjusted the order before and after. She deleted all the nonsense that praised the emperor and left a suspense. It was done. Gu Yundong put down his pen, blew on the ink, and left the study with a few pages. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1000, Have to pick a good title. The people outside the door immediately surrounded her. Madame Dai took the few pages and was stunned. Why do I seem to be missing 2 pages? Gu Yundong nodded. I've simplified the story. Actually, she had deleted the nonsense. The prefecture magistrate was indeed worthy of being an official and a leader. He praised the emperor's great achievements and did not repeat the words of flattery. Gu Yundong really did not expect him to be such a prefecture magistrate. Madame Dai nodded and lowered her head to look. Prefecture magistrate Dai wanted to take a look at it first, but he couldn't snatch it in front of everyone. He could only endure it and take it after Madame Dai finished reading it. The more Madame Dai read it, the more she liked it and the more excited she became. After reading it, she looked at Gu Yundong with sparkling eyes. It's written too well. I still haven't had enough after reading it. It's really like reading a storybook. How could an article be as good as a storybook? Anyway, Madame Dai felt that after reading what her husband had written and then looking at Yundong's modifications, it was as if she was reading two stories. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. She asked the others, "Do you think it's okay?" Even if Shao Qingyuan didn't finish reading it, he immediately nodded. "It can't be better." Dai Wenhua laughed as well. "Sure." Only the Prefecture Magistrate Dai had a complicated look in his eyes. What she wrote was indeed more fascinating than his work. It was just that he was being too polite. Moreover, he said, "Isn't it better to add some words to praise the emperor?" The four people present could not help but roll their eyes. Madame Dai said directly, "I think this is quite good. Without those praises, the commoners will still know what the emperor has done. If you add it randomly, it will only be superfluous." Seeing that everyone else agreed, the prefecture magistrate could only sigh secretly and say, "All right, then let's use this. Wenhua, take it to the largest tea house in the prefectural city. If they do it well, they will be rewarded later." "Don't worry, father. I'll take care of it." As he spoke, he took the paper and was about to leave when Gu Yundong suddenly shouted, "Wait, I remember that the storyteller in the tea house will announce the content in advance." "That's right. I'll tell the customers what I want to say 2 days in advance." Gu Yundong smiled strangely. "In that case, shouldn't we give this book a name first?" "You're right. Then what name should we give it?" Shao Qingyuan said, "About the cowpox vaccination method." The prefecture magistrate said, "The people's good days are here." Dai Wenhua said, "There's finally hope for smallpox." Madame Dai said, "As parents, we can finally rest assured." Gu Yundong, are you all serious? What kind of title was this? If it were her, she would definitely not enter the tea house to listen to a story because of this ridiculous title. Seeing her speechless expression, the four of them were stunned. Wasn't it quite in line with the content? Why did she look unsatisfied? "Yundong, do you have any good titles?" Gu Yundong took a brush and paper and wrote one on a piece of paper. The four of them stuck their heads out to take a look. Wasn't this title a little too far? Gu Yundong wrote a couple more. The few of them stuck their heads out and discussed carefully for a while before finally choosing one. After settling down the title, Gu Yundong finally heaved a sigh of relief. Dai Wenhua immediately left the Dai residence with a few pieces of paper. When he walked out of the door, he instantly felt that the things in his hand were worth thousands of gold. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1001, Shock. People in the capital are scared. The largest tea house in the prefectural city was called Fortune Tea House. This tea house had been in operation for more than 100 years and was an old brand. The owner of the tea house knew how to put in a lot of effort. Not only were the tea leaves diverse, but there were also all kinds of snacks. Previously, after Gu Yundong's new tea house opened for business, the owner of the tea house came to contact them. Gu Yundong and the others did not hide anything and had business dealings with Fortune Tea House. Apart from that, the Fortune Tea House had another specialty, which was the storyteller. The stories told by the storyteller here were very novel and especially emotional. What was even more amazing was that there were people playing drums and gongs behind the screen. Therefore, there were many people who came to the tea house because of its reputation. The guests in the tea house did not care about their status. There were private rooms upstairs for the guests who could afford to spend. The guests who were less rich could still share a table in the lobby downstairs. Therefore, the business of the tea house was exceptionally good. Sometimes, there was even a queue. Hence, even if Gu Yundong and the others opened the new tea pavilion, it did not affect their customer base. Dai Wenhua entered this building. This time, he directly conveyed the government's orders. The owner of the Fortune Tea House had to cooperate. However, after the owner saw what Dai Wenhua had brought, he was immediately interested. Even without the government's orders, he wanted to buy it. Except, young Master Dai, is this story true? Of course it's true. How can such a matter that concerns the lives of hundreds of thousands of people be fake? The owner nodded. That's right. Lord Dai has always loved the people like his son. I believe him. He was even slightly excited. He asked in a low voice, but are there really only a few hundred free spots in front? Can you leave a few for us? You've helped us so much. Of course. Dai Wenhua tried his best to suppress the smile on his face. Look, Shao Qingyuan was right. There was a limit to the number, so everyone was fighting to pre-order. Even the owner of the tea house, who was so knowledgeable, was so tempted, let alone others. However, this was inseparable from the good reputation his father had left behind after being an official for many years. Dai Wenhua believed that their plan would be launched soon. The owner immediately smiled. Thank you, young Master Dai. Dai Wenhua cupped his hands and left quickly. As soon as they left, the owner quickly found the storyteller and asked him to memorize the contents of these few pages. When the time came, he would definitely finish speaking without missing a word. Seeing that his boss valued it so much, the storyteller hurriedly took the few pieces of paper carefully. He asked the boss to let him stay in the private room and not leak this information. Then, he went out and wrote a line of words on a sign. Then, he hung it outside the door. Outside the door was the title of the story. As soon as the boss left, someone walked over to take a look. What did you say in the last 2 days? Is it the story about the scholar and the fox demon? I missed the ending yesterday. Are you still going to say the ending? I want to hear about General Wang's war. Don't argue, don't argue. Let me see. In the end, the person narrowed his eyes and looked at the headline, shock. Everyone in the capital was terrified when they found out. Everyone was speechless. Huh? What is it? The story this time seems very different. It's such a serious matter. The people in the capital are actually frightened. Wait, why do we have to wait for 6 days? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1002, an incredible event. The contents of the story soon attracted everyone's attention in the tea house. The title was too captivating. Someone even looked for the boss to ask if he had any important news from Beijing. The boss smiled without saying anything. He only said, "Won't you know when you come to listen in 2 days? Then tell us more about the story." The boss shook his head and ran away when no one was paying attention. This matter was quickly spread. After all, what happened in the capital was the bellwether of the entire Dajiang dynasty. Everyone was especially interested in what happened in the capital. Now, they actually said that everyone in the capital was frightened. What about them? Wouldn't they have to be scared to death? Dai Wenhua came back after asking around outside and said excitedly, "Many people are talking about this on the streets now. Miss Gu is indeed amazing to give it such a title." Gu Yundong chuckled. Actually, this was not her title at all. What she had originally written was, shocking. The emperor actually did such a thing. Go to. Coit was unbelievable. Why would the prince make such a life and death decision? This looked like a royal secret. It was more eye-catching, right? However, when the Prefecture Magistrate saw this, he almost shook his head off and refused to use this. He said that this was a great disrespect to the emperor. If he made a mistake later, he would be investigated and punished. Gu Yundong had no choice but to settle for second best and take another one. Although the effect seemed to be alright, she still felt a little regretful. As for why the storyteller had to wait 6 days before he started, it was naturally to leave enough time for Shao Qingyuan and the others to make other preparations. Of course, it could also let the matter continue to ferment. Since there were no more problems about the storytelling in the tea house, the Prefecture Magistrate began to gather the doctors in the prefectural city. It was definitely impossible for Shao Qingyuan to inoculate the citizens of the entire Shuanha Prefecture with cowpox vaccination. He had to tell the doctors how to operate first, and everyone had to work together. However, as Shao Qingyuan had said, no matter if it was a doctor or a commoner, they had to be sought after. In order to avoid unnecessary doubts and trouble, the Prefecture Magistrate released a piece of news. There was finally a solution to a certain incurable disease. The Imperial physicians of the Imperial Hospital planned to choose a portion of talented doctors and teach them this method. If there were any doctors who were interested, they could report to the prefectural city's government office in the near future. The government office would choose 10 suitable people. Yes, there were only 10 spots. First come, first served. As soon as this news came out, the doctors from the various medical centers in the prefecture capital were the first to report to the government office. The prefecture magistrate registered all the names. However, he was also afraid that all the doctors would come and cause the medical centers in the city to be empty. The patients would not be able to seek a doctor, so he limited the conditions. For example, there could only be 2 people participating from each clinic. This restriction made these doctors even more tempted and eager. 6 days later, the doctors had already gathered. Even many doctors from the various county cities below had arrived. The prefecture magistrate tidied up a few courtyards and rooms behind the government office and let everyone stay there. Shao Qingyuan officially began his lesson. At the same time, the storyteller of the fortune tea house suddenly slammed the wood and the gong and drum behind the screen sounded heavily. Then, they began to talk. As we know, something big happened in the capital some time ago. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1003, This person is handsome and cool. The fortune tea house was filled with people. The private rooms upstairs were all full, and the lobby downstairs was filled with people sitting or standing. Even the windowsill at the door was filled with people. Everyone was listening to the story. It was really because the publicity this time was especially awesome. It was not only because of the shocking title, but also because Prefecture Magistrate Dai had gotten someone to secretly promote it. Hence, Fortune Tea House had an unprecedented number of customers today. The storyteller was inexplicably a little nervous, but he was experienced and quickly immersed in the story. By the way, at the end of last year, a person suddenly came to the capital. This person is young and handsome. Most importantly, he has good skills. The storyteller said mysteriously, this person is travel-worn and exhausted. After arriving in the capital, he immediately went to the residence of Imperial Physician Song, the head of the Imperial Hospital. He used all his strength to knock on Imperial Physician Song's door and fainted. Everyone, guess why this person ran to Imperial Physician Song's house? Someone immediately guessed, why else? Of course it's because he has an incurable disease and asked Imperial Physician Song to treat him. No. The storyteller shook his head. Could it be that Imperial Physician Song's relative was in trouble and wanted his help? The storyteller still shook his head. No. He kept Imperial Physician Song in suspense and quickly solved the mystery. He looked for Imperial Physician Song because he had a secret medical prescription and wanted to hand it to Imperial Physician Song. Unfortunately, he shook his head, and everyone immediately straightened up. Unfortunately what? Could it be that he didn't wake up after fainting? Go upstairs. Gu Yundong could not help but twitch his lips. Why are you so black-hearted? Can't you expect something good from them? The storyteller slapped the wood again and shook his head. It's a pity that for a nameless commoner didn't have a visiting card or recommendation. How difficult was it to meet the head of the Imperial Hospital? The gatekeeper didn't allow anyone to enter at all. This person was chased out before he even saw Imperial Physician Song. However, he didn't give up. This medical prescription concerned thousands of commoners. Only by handing it to Imperial Physician Song could it be handed to the emperor. Only then could it be announced to the world so that no families in the world would be destroyed because of the illness. Hence, he dragged his exhausted body and guarded Imperial Physician Song's residence, thinking that he would definitely be able to see him when the sky turned dark. However, what he didn't know was that Imperial Physician Song happened to go out to gather herbs and wouldn't come back at all today. Everyone, think about it. It's December. It's so cold in the capital. He endured all the cold and waited outside for 3 days and 3 nights before Imperial Physician Song finally returned. When Imperial Physician Song saw his pale face and stiff body suddenly appear, he was shocked. Fortunately, Imperial Physician Song was benevolent. Seeing that he was trembling from the cold, he quickly got someone to bring the man back into the residence and let him eat something and drink hot water. Only then did he slowly recover. Who knew that this person's body would warm up and he could finally speak fluently? He immediately grabbed Imperial Physician Song's hand and said impatiently and excitedly, "Imperial Physician Song, the illness that has been troubling us for thousands of years can finally be resolved. We've finally found a way to prevent smallpox. In the future, we won't let anyone die from smallpox." What? Whether it was upstairs or downstairs, all the guests in the tea house could not help but stand up and widen their eyes. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1004, Willing to go to the 18th level of hell. What illness did you just say? Smallpox. Some people were so excited that they wanted to rush forward. Fortunately, the waiter was smart and quickly stopped them. Everyone, calm down. Wait for the storyteller to finish speaking. A distinguished guest upstairs questioned, "How is that possible? Since ancient times, no one has ever found a way to treat smallpox." "You're bragging." The storyteller smiled. "This gentleman is right." Imperial Physician Song didn't believe it either. Wasn't this nonsense? How could you treat such a life and death matter just like that? Impossible. Imperial Physician Song was angry. Imperial Physician Song was furious. Imperial Physician Song wanted to chase this person out. But this person firmly swore that if he said anything false, he would go to the 18th level of hell and be dismembered by 5 horses. He would be cut into 1,000 pieces and never reincarnate. Upstairs, Gu Yundong was speechless. Did she write such a sentence? Could you not add it randomly? However, the storyteller became more and more excited as he spoke. His face turned red, and he slapped the wood in his hand. The entire Fortune Tea House fell silent. Everyone was so shocked by this oath that they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. How ruthless was this? He had sworn such a heavy oath to himself. Imperial Physician Song was shocked. When he saw how confident this person was, he thought that if what the man said was true, wouldn't it benefit the people? No one would wait for death because of smallpox anymore. How shocking would this be for the people of the world? He spoke passionately, and the people below also felt their blood boil. "Go to." The storyteller paused and lowered his voice. Therefore, Imperial Physician Song was skeptical and patiently listened to him talk about the medical prescription. Unexpectedly, the more he listened, the more excited he became. The more he listened, the more he acknowledged the medical prescription. He immediately clapped his hands and cheered 3 times. However, as the head of the Imperial Hospital, Imperial Physician Song did not see the effect of this prescription with his own eyes. Naturally, he would not announce it to the world. He had to be responsible to the world. Hence, he pushed everything aside and focused on experimenting with this prescription. He even applied for leave from the emperor. A month later, Imperial Physician Song came out of the residence with a tired expression. However, his eyes emitted a light that was so hot that it could burn people. He entered the royal palace overnight and reported to the current emperor immediately. The storyteller cupped his hands towards the east. Everyone knows that His Majesty is wise. Ever since His Majesty ascended to the throne, he has been working hard to rule. He is wise and mighty, and he loves the people like his children. He can be said to be an emperor for thousands of years. He sent disaster relief in Yongning Prefecture, and he killed corrupt officials Wanqing Prefecture. Just take our Shuana Prefecture for example. The thieves on the mountain were also captured by the soldiers of the emperor. Only then can we commoners have our current good lives, right? Yes. This was true. The current emperor had only ascended the throne not long ago, but everything he did was for the sake of the common people to have a better life. The storyteller was satisfied. Therefore, although His Majesty was woken up in the middle of the night, when he heard that Imperial physician Song had brought over a medical prescription that could prevent smallpox, he immediately lost all his anger. He was extremely excited and filled with anticipation as he discussed with Imperial physician Song until midnight. The next day, His Majesty even personally left the royal palace to verify the results. Seeing that the medical prescription was really useful, the emperor was overjoyed. He waved his sleeve on the spot and gave the medical prescription a name: cowpox vaccination method. The meaning is very simple. It means that those who are infected with cowpox will never be infected with smallpox again. Everyone was stunned. Cowpox infection? Are you serious? Someone asked softly. The storyteller said loudly, "Good question. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1005. Everyone in the capital is scared. After the emperor announced the cowpox vaccination method, everyone was questioning if this vaccination method was really useful. Is it true? If it's fake, won't they lose their lives? The storyteller continued, even though the emperor repeatedly guaranteed that there was no problem, and more than 30 to 40 people had already been vaccinated with cowpox, and the emperor had seen it with his own eyes, many people still had doubts. The emperor was anxious. What should he do? This kind of thing that benefits the people is originally a great thing, but no one is willing to try it. Wouldn't it be a waste of such a good medical prescription? Every year, people who get smallpox would still die in batches. The emperor's heart was bleeding. These are his people. He wants to save everyone's lives. The storyteller screamed at the top of his lungs. Some people below had already begun to wipe their tears. The emperor really loved his people like his children. The emperor is a benevolent ruler. Although he was anxious, he didn't want to force others to take the vaccine. But was this the only way? There's no progress at all. At this moment, the 11-year-old second prince knelt solemnly in front of the emperor and said with a firm expression, "Father, I'm willing to give it a try. I haven't had smallpox yet, so I can take the vaccine. When the time comes, Father will invite all the officials and commoners to witness it with their own eyes. They will definitely believe you." Everyone was stunned. The second prince? The second prince was actually willing to be a test subject? Wasn't this too bold? Wasn't he afraid of failure? The storyteller was shocked. Everyone, you didn't hear wrongly. The second prince really wanted to test it himself. The first prince had had smallpox before. Even if he wanted to help, there was nothing he could do. However, the second prince never had it. If he wanted to test it, he must be gambling with his life. Once this shocking action spread, everyone in the capital was terrified. Very good, it was time to ask the questions. Upstairs, Gu Yundong nodded slightly and took a sip of water. She did not randomly pick a title, right? How appropriate. Go to. Ko. The guests in the tea house widened their eyes. But wasn't that so? Not to mention the people in the capital, they were also frightened when they heard that. That was a prince, and the second prince was the son of the first wife. How noble was his status. He was actually willing to be vaccinated with cowpox. The storyteller took a sip of tea. He had been too excited just now, and his throat was a little smoky. Someone below could not help but hold his breath and ask carefully, what happened after that? Did the emperor agree? The storyteller pointed at him. Good question. Everyone was paying attention to this matter. In less than a day, it shocked the court. None of the officials in the capital agreed. They all submitted reports to plead with the emperor to dispel the second prince's thoughts. There was even a loyal and patriotic minister who brought his son into the palace, and asked him to replace the second prince with this cowpox vaccination method. Guess what the emperor said? The storyteller paused. Before anyone could speak, he continued, the emperor said, "My son is a prince. He is respected by tens of thousands of people and praised by the world. He enjoys power and doesn't have to worry about food and clothing. Then, it's only right for him to do something for the people of the world. For the sake of the people of the world, I agree with him to personally test the cowpox vaccination method. You don't have to persuade me anymore. This matter is settled. Everyone present sucked in a sharp breath. His Majesty agreed just like that? The Emperor has blessed the world. It's the blessing of the people to have such a wise ruler. It's the blessing of the world. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1006, Too Effective. Many people were grateful. They knelt down and shouted, "Long live the Emperor! Long live the Emperor!" Gu Yundong was speechless. This was too effective. Fortunately, Prefecture Magistrate Dai did not use the entire page of praise. Otherwise, these people would probably kneel while listening to the entire story. After everyone expressed their gratitude, the storyteller continued, "Everyone, for the sake of the world and to make the smallpox disappear completely and not let the common people lose their lives because of this illness, the Emperor has really put in a lot of effort." Then what happened to the second prince? Someone asked anxiously. A smile instantly appeared on the storyteller's face. The cowpox vaccination method has already been confirmed by the head of the Imperial Hospital and has been approved by all the Imperial physicians. What do you think the second prince will do? He will naturally be safe and healthy. Moreover, from now on, he won't be troubled by smallpox anymore. At that moment, the entire capital was celebrating. All the officials had personally witnessed the process of the second prince's vaccination, and they had personally seen him recover. The cowpox vaccination method was indeed a major invention. The exciting moment had arrived, and all the officials cheered for the heavens to bless our empire. The storyteller's saliva flew everywhere, and his entire body trembled. Everyone witnessed the effectiveness of the cowpox vaccination method. After the second prince, Prince Ning, Princeton, the Prime Minister, the Minister of Justice, and the others all submitted a plea. They wanted their sons to follow in the second prince's footsteps and be vaccinated to prevent smallpox. His Majesty agreed immediately. Unfortunately, everyone was stunned. What was a pity? Didn't they say that it was effective? The storyteller shook his head again. Unfortunately, the number of imperial physicians was limited. Other than the person who invented the cowpox vaccination method, only Imperial physician Song knew this vaccination method. Go to Ko, the Emperor was extremely worried. He asked this person and Imperial physician Song to immediately give this medical prescription to all the Imperial physicians and let everyone in the capital be vaccinated as soon as possible. You have to know that in our vast country, countless people die of smallpox every day. The earlier they are vaccinated, the earlier they can prevent it and feel at ease. However, other than the capital, there are still millions of people in the world that the Emperor has to care about. What should we do? There are only so many Imperial physicians, and our manpower is really limited. If we wait until everyone in the capital is vaccinated, who knows when it will be our Shuanhe Prefecture's turn? Ah! The people below exclaimed. Didn't that mean that many people on their side would die from smallpox? The storyteller shook his head and sighed. Sigh, there's nothing we can do. Our prefectural city is too far away. After the vaccination, there's still Linzhou Prefecture, Wanqing Prefecture, and Yongning Prefecture, someone hurriedly said. Then can we ask the Prefecture Magistrate to send a letter and beg the Emperor to send us an Imperial physician so that we can be vaccinated? That's right, that's right. My first 2 children died of smallpox. Now that I finally have a third son, I'm on tenterhooks all day, afraid that he won't be able to survive this illness. Now that we finally have a solution, I don't want to miss it. That's right. I have an older brother who also died of this illness. My parents suffered a setback and haven't recovered until now. Gu Yundong listened quietly from the second floor. Some of them should be hired to talk here, right? The storyteller spread his hands. There's nothing I can do. I'm just a storyteller. I can only tell everyone about this joyous matter. I don't know anything about treating illnesses. As soon as he finished speaking, a group of people suddenly walked over. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1007. The subtext is very obvious. Someone with sharp eyes saw the person in front clearly and immediately shouted, "It's young Master Dai." That's young Master Dai. The people in the tea house turned their heads. The people at the door were close. They quickly ran to Dai Wenhua and blocked his way. Dai Wenhua was confused. He looked at the commoners who had suddenly appeared in surprise and took 2 steps back. What's the matter? Gu Yundong could not see clearly from the second floor, but he knew that Dai Wenhua had followed their plan and led his men past the entrance of the tea house when everyone was at a loss. Now that the way forward was blocked, the bailiffs behind Dai Wenhua immediately looked at everyone warily and separated the crowd. Someone poked his head out and asked loudly, "Young Master Dai, there's already a medical prescription in the capital to prevent smallpox. Is this true?" "That's right, young Master Dai. The second prince personally tested this medical prescription." "Is there such a thing?" "Young Master Dai, when will it be our Xuanhe Prefecture's turn to be vaccinated?" "Young Master Dai, we can't wait for a few years." Dai Wenhuo's expression changed from confusion to surprise to enlightenment. In the end, he sighed heavily, his expression rich and convincing. He nodded and said, "I didn't expect all of you to already know. This is indeed true." As he spoke, he raised his hand. Only then did everyone realize that he was holding a piece of paper in his hand. It looked like an official document. "Go to Ko," he said loudly, "this is true. Moreover, the emperor is concerned about the people. A few days ago, he has already sent official documents to the various government offices and sent an imperial physician over to teach the doctors of the various prefectures about the cowpox vaccination method. Everyone should have heard that the government offices summoned the doctors of the various medical halls a few days ago for this matter. After all the doctors learn it, they will naturally inoculate everyone." Someone in the crowd asked loudly, "Can the doctors learn it? Can the imperial physician sent by the imperial court inoculate us?" "Good. Hey, race the point." Dai Wenhua said, "The imperial physician sent by the imperial court will stay in the Xuanhe Prefecture for 3 months and personally guide the local doctors to inoculate everyone. After 3 months, the imperial physicians will return to the capital. Everyone knows that the imperial physicians belong to the imperial hospital. It's already not easy for them to leave the capital and come to the Xuanhe Prefecture for 3 months. Therefore, if everyone is worried, try your best to come to the government office for inoculation within 3 months. Yes, just 3 months. If you don't hurry, you won't get a share. Don't hesitate. When the imperial physician leaves, you can only let the local doctors vaccinate you. By the way, because there are many people in the prefectural city, the number of people vaccinated every day is limited. For the time being, only 200 people are allowed to be vaccinated every day. After 200 people are vaccinated, you will have to wait for a day. Of course, you can register first and come when the time is right." Yes, not only was there a time limit, but there was also a limit to the number of people. Therefore, if you didn't sign up today, you might have to wait until 3 months later. Also, Dai Wenhua continued, "The imperial physicians sent by the emperor are free to inoculate everyone. This is the emperor's grace. However, after the imperial physicians leave, whether the doctors in the prefecture city want to charge will depend on themselves. After all, the doctors also have to make money. Yes, if they did not hurry up, not only would they not have a chance, but they would also have to spend money. They would have to think about it." The subtext was already very obvious. After Dai Wenhua finished speaking, he waved the paper in his hand and said, "This is an official document. Everyone, make way. I want to paste it at the city gate. If there's anything you don't understand, just look at it yourself. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1008. more and more people. The bailiff separated the crowd and let Dai Wenhua walk forward. The others still wanted to ask, but one of the bailiffs stayed behind and said loudly, "If you have any more questions, you can ask at the government office. Those who want to register, please go to the government office as soon as possible to find the registrar." As soon as he said this, a few people had already run away. Seeing this, the others couldn't care less. Afraid that they would fall behind, they hurriedly followed. As expected, there was already a registrar sitting at the entrance of the government office. The first person rushed to him with sweat all over his face. "Sir, is the registration for cowpox vaccination method here?" "I'm here for registration now. Can I be vaccinated soon?" The registrar shook his head. "Of course not. The cowpox vaccination will only begin the day after tomorrow. However, you can remember the name first." Not to mention that Shao Qingyuan was still teaching the other doctors the cowpox vaccination method, just the cowpox liquid was not that easy to collect. The man swallowed and hesitated. Should he really register? Should he really be vaccinated? However, before he could figure it out, someone pushed him from behind. "Do you want to register or not? If you don't want to, move aside. Don't block my way." The registrar looked up at him. Good. They must have found the shill. He raised his hand and asked the person, "Name, address." "My name is Hidaniu. I live in the prefectural city's Hulu Alley. Not only do I have to be vaccinated, but I also have to sign up for my younger siblings. And I go to Ko." Before she could finish, she was pushed aside by the first person. "What's the hurry? I haven't said anything." That person did not argue with him. All right. Hurry up." The first person immediately mentioned 3 or 4 names. Soon, another large group of people arrived. All of them scrambled to squeeze in front of the desk. Fortunately, a bailiff ran over and asked someone to line up first. There were a lot of people. Most of them were listening to books on the first floor of Fortune Tea House. The people on the second floor all had some wealth. When they came over, they were very slow. Moreover, they were actually still a little hesitant in their hearts. They wondered if they should just let these ordinary people test it to confirm that it was safe. Therefore, even though they had come, most of them were still standing far away and had no intention of registering. Unexpectedly, a moment later, the registrar suddenly shouted, "The 200 slots for the first day are already full. Now, start registering for the second day." "What? It's already the second day? Didn't only a dozen people pass in front?" The registrar said loudly, "Although only a dozen or so people have gone over, everyone has reported their siblings, sons, daughters, nephews, and nieces. Every person has already reported many names, so the spots are naturally full." "What? That worked?" The crowd immediately became anxious. Those wealthy families who originally wanted to observe also became anxious. However, at this moment, someone shouted, "My family is in Fengkai County. Sir, can you leave a few spots for us? When my family comes, we can fill them in directly. I have to tell my uncles in the countryside." This time, it was like poking a hornet's nest. Those who were originally hesitating no longer hesitated and quickly went forward to sign up. Those who couldn't make up their minds immediately got someone to inform their families. There were also commoners who did not go to the tea house to listen to the story. When they saw that there was a long line at the entrance of the county office, they immediately came over curiously to ask about the situation. Immediately, someone explained the process to them vividly. There were more and more people. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1009, another shocking title. Everyone in Fortune Tea House had left. Only Gu Yundong was still upstairs. She slowly finished the tea and snacks on the table. After all, she had spent money. She could not waste it. She would not stop until she finished the last peanut. The storyteller downstairs was still drinking water. He was too excited and his mouth was dry. The boss walked over at this moment and patted his shoulder. Not bad, well said. The storyteller chuckled. Boss, when are we going to start the second half of the story? These people are too anxious. They've all run away before you can finish. They were too anxious for a moment and afraid that I wouldn't have a spot. I can understand. When they remember later, they will naturally ask who was the first to discover that the cowpox vaccination method can prevent smallpox. Boss, should we release the title now? Well, release it in 2 days. Yes, I'll write it first. The boss was in high spirits. The story that young Master Dai had brought was indeed extraordinary. Even the question was especially attractive. The number of guests today was several times more than before, and this story was unique. He could repeat it 2 more times tomorrow and the day after. At that time, the storytellers in the other tea houses in the prefecture would probably memorize it and spread it everywhere. However, this story was only halfway through. How to resolve the suspense left behind would depend on the Fortune Tea House. The customers would definitely increase crazily. When the boss thought of this, he immediately rushed to write the title. Go to. After a while, Gu Yundong finally brought Tong Shuitao downstairs. When she walked behind the boss, she couldn't help but take a look. Indeed, she saw the eye-catching headline, "Oh my God." The person who invented the cowpox vaccination method was actually him. Gu Yundong coughed quietly. Why did he feel so ashamed? She waved and quickly left with Tong Shuitao. When the carriage passed by the entrance of the government office, it was indeed crowded and bustling. The news about the cowpox vaccination method was completely popular. Everyone was discussing it. The number of registrars at the entrance of the government office had also changed from 1 to 3. The queue was very long. Gu Yundong lowered the curtain and sighed slightly. I only realized now that there are so many people in our prefectural city. Today, there aren't too many people. Many people still don't know this news. Tomorrow will probably be even more lively. Tong Shuitao steered the carriage in a different direction to avoid bumping into others. However, just as she was about to leave, she suddenly saw a familiar figure squeezing through the crowd. She hurriedly pulled the reins. Miss, is that Shao Yuan? Gu Yundong took a closer look. Wasn't that so? Shao Yuan was small and was also at the back of the queue. However, there were too many people around her. Gu Yundong saw her being pushed around a few times. Her feet seemed to have been stepped on a few times. It was so painful that her face turned pale. There were also people who spoke ill of her. If not for the fact that there were bailiffs protecting the peace, she would have been thrown out. Gu Yundong paused. She immediately got off the carriage and walked towards Shao Yuan. Shao Yuan was trying her best to poke her head out. When she saw Gu Yundong walking over, she was stunned for a moment before she quickly smiled. Sister Gu, you're also queuing up? A woman behind her immediately looked at Gu Yundong warily, as if she would interfere. Gu Yundong shook her head. I'm not here to queue. Why are you here alone? Where's your mother? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 10:10, Dr. Pig? At the mention of Madame Fan, Shao Yuan looked a little sad. She said in a low voice, my mother caught a cold. When I came out to buy medicine for her, I heard someone talking about the government office, so I came to line up. As she spoke, she raised her hand. Sure enough, there was a medicine bag in her hand. However, the medicine bag was a little flat from being squeezed around. Gu Yundong waved her hand. Come out first. I'll bring you back. But, Shao Yuan was very hesitant. She looked at the team in front of her and the long line of people behind her. She could not move her legs. She knew about smallpox. When she was very young, she had a close playmate who had smallpox and could not be saved. Later on, her mother told her about the seriousness of smallpox. She especially hoped that there would be medicine that could cure this illness. Now that she finally had it, she did not want to miss it. Seeing this, Tong Shuitao immediately leaned close to her ear and whispered, "Miss knows that Imperial physician from the capital." "Don't worry." Shao Yuan's eyes lit up when she heard that. Only then did she come out of the team. Gu Yundong held her hand and got into the carriage. She looked at the long line and slowly exhaled. Shao Yuan had helped her before. Seeing her in such a sorry state, she naturally wouldn't sit back and do nothing. The two of them sent her home directly. Madame Fan had indeed caught a cold. Fortunately, she had recovered a lot after taking a few medicines. Seeing that Shao Yuan had not returned for a long time, she was anxious. When she saw Gu Yundong and the rest, she quickly went into the house to avoid infecting them. Source: Com, updated on. Hence, it was Shao Yuan's father who received Gu Yundong. Gu Yundong explained to him about the incident at the government office and Shao Yuan's father immediately became excited. "It can prevent smallpox?" "Really? Then, I'll queue up and register for my Shao Yuan." Gu Yundong hurriedly stopped him. "Don't. I specially brought Shao Yuan back. There's no need to queue up. I'll get Zhu to come over later and give Shao Yuan the vaccine first." Shao Yuan's family wasn't alone. There were also the Su family, and Zhuangzi, and the others. She might as well inoculate everyone in one go so that there wouldn't be any trouble in the future. However, the person performing the vaccination was Zhu. Shao Qingyuan didn't have time at all. Speaking of which, compared to Song Dajiang, Zhu might know this vaccination technique better. After all, ever since Shao Qingyuan started exploring the cowpox vaccination method, Zhu had been learning by his side. He had even personally infected himself with cowpox, so there was no problem with his skills. Shao Yuan's father was even more grateful. "Then I'll have to trouble Dr. Zhu one." Gu Yundong was speechless. "Dr. Pig?" The corners of her mouth couldn't help but twitch. This sounded too awkward. Shouldn't Zhu and the rest change their names? What were their names in the past? She had to ask later. Gu Yundong shook her head and agreed on a time for vaccination with Shao Yuan and the rest before leaving with Tong Shuitao. Unexpectedly, when she went out, she happened to see Mother Su, who lived next door. Mother Su was slightly stunned when she saw her. Then, she went up to her excitedly. "Boss Gu, why are you here?" "I bumped into Shao Yuan on the way and brought her back." Gu Yundong nodded. "Aunt, I won't bother you anymore." "Well, leave first." With that, Gu Yundong raised her foot again. Mother Su ran up to her. "Hey, wait, Boss Gu." "Aunt, what's the matter?" I do have something to ask you. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 10-11, A Match Made in Heaven. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. "Sure, ask away." Mother Su looked left and right, looking like she was hesitating. Gu Yundong saw that it was still early, so she simply said, "Why don't we talk inside?" All right. Boss Gu, please come in." When she entered the Su family's house, Mother Su immediately poured her a glass of water. She was very enthusiastic. Gu Yundong had just drunk water at Shao Yuan's house. She simply held the cup in her hand and asked bluntly, "Aunt, if you have any difficulties, just tell me. Su Changshan and Su Qing are helping me now. I will definitely help you if I can. Then, I'll get straight to the point." Mother Su coughed lightly. Even though she was at home, she still lowered her voice and said softly, "I just want to ask Boss Gu, how's Zhuangzi's character?" "Zhuangzi?" Gu Yundong was surprised. "Aunt, why are you asking about him?" "Well, he and Changshan are both employees at Gus. The two of them have been together for a long time and have a good relationship. They've been to my house twice. I think this young man looks quite energetic and polite. He's generous and smart. I quite like him." Gu Yundong blinked. So be it. So, that's why I asked Changshan to ask around. I know that this boy is not engaged yet and his family is simple. Source. Com, updated on. Gu Yundong suddenly reacted and widened her eyes. Aunt, do you like him? Do you want him, Anne? Su Qing, Mother Su was a little embarrassed. I'm not afraid of you laughing at me. I do have such thoughts. She was living a good life now. Her children had work to do, and her family was slowly starting to have savings. Now, the most worrisome thing was the marriage of his children. The eldest son was still all right. He was a man and was not shabby looking. Especially after he became a worker at Gus, there were really many matchmakers. It was just that the eldest son wanted to earn more money and live a better life before getting married. However, Su Qing was different. She had been unengaged before. In this day and age, it was not good for a woman's reputation to be unengaged. Many people did not care about the reason for the unengagement. In any case, they were immediately unhappy when they heard that the marriage had been cancelled. There were also some families who took a fancy to Su Qing, but their conditions were too poor. They were either widowers or were in poor health. Or maybe, there were too many people in the family. Those men wanted to find a diligent wife to work for as a caretaker. How could Mother Su be happy with such families? Later on, Su Qing became a female employee of New Tea Pavilion. Needless to say, there were some families with better conditions, but their character was too bad, especially when a few families actually came for Su Qing's monthly salary and asked her to hand over all her money. There were also people who despised her for showing her face in work and asked her to resign after she got married to avoid embarrassing herself. However, they turned around and said that she could let others do this work. After all, there were also older women working in the kitchen in New Tea Pavilion. Mother Su almost fainted when she heard that. These people had a good plan. Because of this, Mother Su was a little disheartened. Until she met Zhuangzi. This young man had a sweet mouth and upright face. He also had a job. His family was simple, and his sister was also a female employee of New Tea Pavilion. He definitely wouldn't mind a woman working outside. The more Mother Su looked at him, the more she liked him. She felt that he and her daughter were a match made in heaven. As for whether Zhuangzi was from the prefectural city or the countryside, that was not important. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 10-12. This bastard is Heartless. Gu Yundong was a little stunned. She had actually taken a fancy to Zhuangzi. The question was, why did he come to ask her? Although she was the boss and had always been a woman of her word, she was not married yet. She was really just a girl. Gu Yundong felt wronged. Seeing that she was silent, Mother Su asked softly, Boss Gu? Is there anything wrong? Or is Zhuangzi actually married in the countryside? No, he's not married. Gu Yundong hurriedly shook her head. Mother Su heaved a sigh of relief. Boss Gu, I haven't told anyone about this, not even my parents. I want to ask you first to understand what kind of person Zhuangzi is. What kind of person was he? Gu Yundong thought for a moment and decided to give Mother Su a heads up. Zhuangzi is indeed a good person. In the beginning, he was a worker at Gus in my county city. It was because he did a good job that I transferred him to the prefectural city. But there's something I have to make clear to Auntie first. In the past, Zhuangzi was a hooligan in the village. Although he did not do anything outrageous, he did commit theft. Gu Yundong was not sure if Mother Su would mind this matter. If she did, then this matter would be over. Mother Su was indeed stunned. A hooligan? She had never thought of this, much less expected it. Source. Com, updated on. Gu Yundong did not hide anything. She also explained the reason why he was a hooligan and his changes and efforts over these days. Mother Su lowered her head and remained silent for a long time. After a while, she raised her head again and said, if that's the case, he became a hooligan for his parents and sister. Now that he's better, he's motivated now. The past is in the past. Moreover, from another perspective, he's a person who values relationships and loyalty. He cares a lot about his family and protects them in his own way. Gu Yundong was speechless. How could that be understood? Was Zhuangzi really someone who valued relationships and loyalty? However, Mother Su felt that it was impossible for people to be perfect. She did not know anything about benevolence and righteousness, but a man who was good to his family was responsible. If he knew how to be filial to his parents, dote on his sister, and work hard to earn money, he would treat his wife well in the future. They were all small fries. It was enough that they could protect their small family. At this moment, Gu Yundong actually felt that Mother Su was extremely smart. But, what if Zhuangzi, that bastard, focused on developing his career? He did not seem to have thought about marriage. His goal was to be a shopkeeper and reach the peak of his life. This bastard had no feelings. At the thought of this, the veins on Gu Yundong's forehead twitched. After a while, she said, since Andy thinks that Zhuangzi is a good person, they'll go back and figure out his intentions. If he's interested, they'll get him to find a matchmaker to propose marriage. If he still doesn't want to get married, well, pretend that we never talked about this. What do you think? Mother Su immediately smiled and nodded. Thank you, Boss Gu. Gu Yundong waved her hand. There's no need. They're both my shop assistants. I'll be happy if something good happens to them. Just don't ask me to be a matchmaker next time, will you? She was really not good at this. Gu Yundong secretly wiped her sweat and left the Su residence with Tong Shuitao. After getting into the carriage, she collapsed inside. Tong Shuitao looked at her in surprise, paused, and asked softly, Miss, are we going to Gus to look for Zhuangzi? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 10:13. Get used to being ugly. Gu Yundong stood up and looked outside. He shook his head and said, I'm not going. The road to Gus is blocked now. It's not easy to walk on. Besides, I haven't thought of how to ask Zhuangzi. Tong Shuitao was puzzled. How else could she ask? She could just ask him if he wanted a wife and let Miss introduce one to him. However, there was indeed a crowd on the road. It was getting late, so it was better to go home first. The small courtyard was also very lively. On the street where they lived, many people were discussing this matter. The Gu family knew that the cowpox vaccination method was Shao Qingyuan's idea, but they didn't say anything. For the past few days, other than Gu Yundong, the rest of the Gu family had been obediently staying in the small courtyard. A few days ago, Shao Qingyuan had just finished inoculating Miss Gu Yunka. She was much better now. The younger siblings in the family had not had smallpox yet. Since there was a preventive method, it would definitely be used on them immediately. However, Yun Shu and Yuanji were in the county city, so they inoculated Kiki first. It was just that the young lady still had marks on her body. She felt that she was too ugly and refused to come out of her room. The first thing Gu Yundong saw when she came in was that she had covered her head with red gauze. She looked like a little bride. She smiled at once. The little girl heard the sound and immediately turned her head. Sister, you're back? Where's Brother Shao? He won't be coming back today, but he told me that Miss Kiki's acne will be gone soon. Can you hold on for 2 more days? Okay. The young lady felt that she would get used to being ugly. As long as she didn't look in the mirror or the basin, she could still deceive herself. That night, Shao Qingyuan didn't return. He would probably have to stay in the government office for the next 2 days to train those doctors urgently. The entire prefectural city was just as they thought. The story of the cowpox vaccination method quickly spread in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th tea houses. More and more people knew about this method to prevent smallpox. They learned about the great actions of the current emperor and the second prince. They also knew that there was a long queue outside the government office. The number of people registered had already lined up until a month later. Most people had the mentality of following the masses. Coupled with the fact that this was an official endorsement, the imperial court would definitely not joke about such a matter of life and death. This cowpox vaccination method must be real. They had to take this opportunity to queue up. Not only did they record their names, but they also reported the names of the people close to them. The people of many villages outside the prefecture capital also heard the news and rushed over. There were even people from the nearby county cities who came to register. Seeing that there were more and more people, the prefecture magistrate began to get people to tell stories in the tea houses in the counties. However, the outcome was still slightly different. After all, it was impossible for the imperial physicians sent by the imperial court to go to every county city. Being able to stay in the prefectural city for 3 months was already the limit. Therefore, they changed the part where the imperial physician was staying in the prefectural city to that the doctors personally taught by the imperial physicians personally stayed in the county cities. The other 2 points, the limitation of numbers and the free consultation, were the same as in the prefecture capital. However, this was enough. Soon, there was a long queue outside the county office. Shao Qingyuan only returned to the small courtyard on the 3rd night. When he returned, it was already dark. Almost everyone in the Gu family had gone to rest. Only Gu Yundong was still sitting in the study reading the account book. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1014, I'll pick a good day first. Gu Yundong knew that he would definitely come back today, so she specially waited for him. Hearing the commotion outside, she immediately came out. Shao Qingyuan looked very tired. Although he had already washed up and changed into clean clothes, he was still haggard. Gu Yundong quickly pulled him to sit down. She stood behind him and massaged his shoulders. "Are you tired?" After all, he was alone, but in just a few days, he had to choose from hundreds of doctors those with good character. He also had to teach these doctors and make sure that they didn't make any mistakes and master the entire process of the cowpox vaccination method. The workload was so huge that it was very tiring. Gu Yundong was very dissatisfied with the emperor. He could have sent an imperial physician over to her prefectural city, but he insisted on letting Shao Qingyuan organize this matter. He was too black-hearted. If she had known earlier, she wouldn't have spent so much time praising his achievements. "Are you feeling better?" Gu Yundong pinched his shoulder and said, "I made chicken soup tonight. I left a bowl in the kitchen to keep it warm. I'll bring it over for you now. Have some and go to bed early. I'll drink it later." Shao Qingyuan pulled her in front of him. It was late at night, so his actions were indeed much bolder. He reached out and held her on his lap, burying his head in her neck. "I'll just hug you. I haven't seen you for a few days." As he spoke, he could not help but tighten his grip. "Well, start giving everyone vaccines tomorrow. We might be even busier later." Gu Yundong felt very comfortable in his arms. She leaned against him and whispered in his ear, "It's okay. I'll visit you every day." "Really?" "Yes, really." Shao Qingyuan immediately heaved a sigh of satisfaction. "In 3 months, I will almost be able to let go. At that time, let's prepare for the wedding, okay?" "Okay." Gu Yundong raised her head slightly and looked at his slightly curled lips. She felt inexplicably happy. "Then, shall I choose a date first?" It was said that it was best to choose 3 good days for a wedding and then take them to the temple to calculate which was the most suitable through divination. Gu Yundong felt that it was time to prepare. Then, after her father finished the prefectural examination, she would show her father the 3 days. Shao Qingyuan's eyes lit up. Looking at her serious expression, his heart trembled and he kissed her fiercely. Gu Yundong almost lost her balance. She subconsciously grabbed his shoulders with both hands. Fortunately, his big hands were firmly tightening her from behind. After the kiss, Shao Qingyuan's voice was hoarse. "Choose a closer time." Gu Yundong could not help but laugh. She pushed him. "Got it. I'll bring you some chicken soup." With that, she stood up and left. When she passed by the main room, she suddenly heard Gu Dajiang sneeze heavily. Not only was Gu Yundong shocked, but Gu Dajiang himself was also shocked awake. He turned around in a daze and continued to sleep with his wife in his arms. However, he felt like he had missed something. The next day, the Shuanhe Prefecture office was filled with people early in the morning. Everyone was waiting for the door to open and for the vaccination to begin. Apart from excitement, the 200 people who registered on the first day also looked uneasy. They were also afraid. After all, they were the first batch of people. If they failed, the others would still have a chance to escape, but they could only wait for death. More than half of the 200 people regretted it. However, they had to come after registering their names and addresses. Otherwise, they would be arrested. Among them, one person was especially regretful. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 10:15, Seeing Shao Qingyuan. This person was shopkeeper Pan. He happened to have nothing to do that day and was listening to stories in Fortune Tea House. When he heard from young Master Dai that he could register for vaccination, he rushed to the government office without a word. He was lucky enough to finally register in the last place. He almost lost his life. However, when he really came for the vaccination today, he felt uneasy again. He was afraid that he had made the wrong decision back then. Therefore, he could not help but retreat. However, at this moment, the door of the government office opened. Two teams of bailiffs quickly ran out and asked the government office to open up a piece of land. Immediately after, Prefecture Magistrate Dai brought the private advisor and the others out. Looking at the noisy crowd outside, he immediately waved his hand and asked everyone to stop. Then, he said, "Quiet. I know that everyone still has a certain amount of doubts and distrust towards the cowpox vaccination method. I guarantee that the cowpox vaccination method is indeed a medical procedure that can prevent smallpox. It has been confirmed by all the Imperial physicians in the Imperial hospital of the current dynasty. The method was named by His Majesty and personally tested by the second prince, so everyone can rest assured. After all, he was the prefecture magistrate with a good reputation and power." When everyone present heard him say these words personally, they were instantly relieved. The prefecture magistrate continued, "Moreover, the person who came to our Shuanhe prefecture this time to guide the other doctors to learn the cowpox vaccination method is someone who has personally vaccinated the second prince." Well, the audience was surprised, but soon became happy and excited. It was definitely not a problem if he had inoculated the second prince personally. If his medical skills were not good, the emperor would not be at ease with him personally doing it, right? The prefecture magistrate's words were like a calming pill for everyone. Seeing that the commoners looked relieved, Prefecture Magistrate Dai was satisfied. "Now, please follow Constable Wang to the Million Gold Pavilion. You will be vaccinated there." The Million Gold Pavilion was a large courtyard not far from the government office. It was once a mansion under the name of an official, but it was emptied after his house was raided. Because people said that the feng shui of this courtyard was not good and the price was not low, no one had bought it until now, so it was still owned by the government. It just so happened that there would be at least 3 months of vaccination time, and there were many commoners. It would definitely not be convenient for them to do it in the government office. After thinking about it, Prefecture Magistrate Dai got someone to clean up this Million Gold Pavilion and settle them here. As soon as he finished speaking, the private advisor had already begun to call out names. Then, Constable Wang led these people to the Million Gold Pavilion. Not only were the 200 people who were going to be vaccinated today following behind, but there were at least 1,000 people along the way. When they arrived at the Million Gold Pavilion, other than the 200 people, everyone else stopped. Then, they saw that there were already more than 100 doctors standing inside the door. Among them, there were dozens of reputable doctors in the prefecture city. Many people knew them and they were very good doctors. Seeing them, these people felt more at ease. Constable Wang quickly called out their names and led the commoners to the doctors. The rest of the people who had not had their turn waited at the side. Shopkeeper Pan had nothing to do because he was in last place. However, he still looked nervously at the people who were being vaccinated. After watching for a while, he felt uncomfortable, so he turned to look elsewhere. Then, he saw Shao Qingyuan. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 10:16, He's the Imperial Physician. Impossible. Shao Qingyuan had just parted ways with Gu Yundong at the door. He did not let her enter the million gold pavilion. There were people everywhere, and they were being vaccinated. The air was dirty, so it was not appropriate to bring people in. However, Gu Yundong had given him many masks before he left. She told him to change them regularly and distribute the rest to other doctors. It was more or less beneficial. After Shao Qingyuan took the masks, he asked her to go back and do her work. After watching Gu Yundong leave with his own eyes, he turned around and entered the million gold pavilion. At this moment, he was giving masks to these doctors who were preparing, so he did not have time to put one on himself. The doctors had also come into contact with the epidemic in the past. At that time, they would cover their mouths and noses with a cloth. Now that they saw what Shao Qingyuan had brought over, they still found it very novel. The mask was really thin and dry. With 2 straps tied behind her ears, it would not fall off easily even if they ran. It was too convenient. All of them immediately thanked Shao Qingyuan for his good intentions. After interacting with Shao Qingyuan for the past few days, they increasingly felt that not only was this young man extremely talented in medicine, but he was also a person who did not hide anything. When they asked him about the methods of the imperial physicians in the capital to deal with illnesses, he would tell them frankly. Moreover, he was very cautious and meticulous. In the past few days, other than listening to the process of the cowpox vaccination, they had also personally gone to the death cell to take over those criminals who had committed capital crimes. At that time, Shao Qingyuan had stood at the side and personally guided them. Therefore, everyone had experience. They were not afraid in front of these commoners at all. The masks in Shao Qingyuan's hand were quickly distributed. The one in his hand was personally made by Gu Yundong. He took it and looked at it. A second before he put it on, Shopkeeper Pan happened to look over and saw him. Shopkeeper Pan was stunned. He was too familiar with Shao Qingyuan. Not only had this person caused him to lose face, but he had also suffered a prison sentence. Now that his life was getting worse, even if he turned to dust, Shopkeeper Pan would still be able to recognize him. But how did this person appear here? Looking at his face, he had the same thing as the other doctors. Could he be a doctor too? But how was that possible? Shopkeeper Pan was puzzled, but he had learned from his mistakes. Instead of rushing forward, he carefully observed. Then, he realized that Shao Qingyuan did not personally inoculate people. However, he shuttled between the doctors and guided them in the inoculation method. He looked like, it was as if he was the boss. It was as if he was the imperial physician from the capital who had specially come to the prefectural city to teach these doctors the vaccination method. How was this possible? He was just a brat from the countryside. How could he have such ability? Shopkeeper Pan's heart was filled with anger and excitement. He had to expose him. However, to be on the safe side, Shopkeeper Pan suppressed his impulse and quietly walked to the side of an old doctor who seemed to have a good temper. He pretended to be curious and asked, "Doctor, who is that young master? Is he also a doctor here? Why don't I see him helping others with vaccination?" The doctor happened to be idle. When he heard this, he looked in the direction of Shopkeeper Pan's finger and immediately smiled. "Oh, you mean young Master Shao? He's the imperial physician from the capital. He has to supervise everything. It's naturally not appropriate for him to do it himself." Him? An imperial physician from the capital? How is that possible? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 10:17, He wants to expose him. Shopkeeper Pan suddenly stood up. Although he already had a guess in his heart, he still shouted in shock. His voice was a little loud and instantly attracted everyone's attention in the hall. The doctor who had just answered his question was immediately displeased. What are you shouting about? Why can't young Master Shao be an imperial physician from the capital? But he, shopkeeper Pan pointed at Shao Qingyuan, but his mind was racing. He knew that Shao Qingyuan was from Fengkai County. He also knew that the guy was a poor kid from the countryside. For dozens of copper coins a day, the guy worked in his shop and let him order him around. The guy didn't even have decent clothes on him. He ate dry steamed buns and didn't have any relatives. How could someone like him be an imperial physician from the capital? This was a liar. This was clearly a liar. Yes, this person must have even hidden it from the Prefecture Magistrate. He was going to kill the entire Xuanhe Prefecture. Shopkeeper Pan was excited. He had finally found an opportunity to take revenge. Therefore, when some bailiffs thought that he was here to cause trouble and wanted to throw him out, he immediately shouted, "Let go of me. Let me tell you, he's not an imperial physician from the capital. He's a liar. Really, I've seen him before. He's just a penniless and ruthless poor boy. How can he be an imperial physician who saves the world?" Everyone present was stunned. Even the bailiff stopped moving. Shao Qingyuan looked at shopkeeper Pan with a trace of confusion in his eyes. Curious. Who was this person? Do I know him? Have I seen him? Shopkeeper Pan was even angrier when he saw his expression. Great, he still pretended not to know him. Although almost 2 years had passed, she had humiliated and bullied him back then. How could this brat not remember him? Shopkeeper Pan broke free from the constable's hand and suddenly ran in front of him. He sneered and said, "Don't pretend. Let me tell you, I definitely won't let you do anything to harm the commoners of our Xuanhe Prefecture." He spoke especially righteously. If he exposed Shao Qingyuan's true colors in front of everyone, the Prefecture Magistrate would definitely look at him in a different light. All the citizens of the Xuanhe Prefecture would be grateful that he had saved their lives. At that time, everything he had lost in the past would come back. Just thinking about it made shopkeeper Pan tremble with excitement. He asked Shao Qingyuan loudly, "Let me ask you, are you from Fengkai County? Is your name Shao Qingyuan?" "Yes, so what?" Shao Qingyuan narrowed his eyes slightly. Shopkeeper Pan snorted and said to everyone, "Did everyone hear that? He's from Fengkai County. He's not an imperial physician from the capital at all. He's a liar who came to harm everyone." The people present exclaimed and stood up one after another to take a step back. The person who had just received the vaccination was about to cry. He grabbed the doctor in front of him in fear and asked him to save him. The scene became chaotic, and cries and shouts kept intertwining. Constable Wang frowned and suddenly shouted, "Quiet. Anyone who makes any more noise will be thrown out." The hall instantly fell silent, but everyone looked at Shao Qingyuan with hatred in their eyes. Shopkeeper Pan was instantly smug, but Shao Qingyuan looked at him as if he was a fool. After a while, he took out something from his pocket and asked him, "Do you know what this is? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 10:18 What happened? Shopkeeper Pan was stunned for a moment. He blinked and craned his neck to take a look. At first, he didn't quite understand, but after a while, his expression changed. How did you get this? What do you think?" Shao Qingyuan looked at him coldly. Someone beside him could not see it clearly and did not understand. He quickly asked, "What is that?" Constable Wang explained coldly, "That's a fish talisman. All the officials in my dynasty have this to prove their identity. Young Master Shao is an imperial physician, so he naturally has one too." Fish talismans? All the imperial court's officials had them? Does that mean he's real? Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Then, they looked at shopkeeper Pan angrily. "What's wrong with you? This is our first time getting vaccinated. You're still spouting nonsense here and making us worry." Constable Wang, I'm afraid this person has ulterior motives. Hurry up and arrest him. Shopkeeper Pan shook his head. How is that possible? How could a person enter the capital and become an imperial physician in such a short time? He grabbed the fish talisman from Shao Qingyuan's hand and looked at the words engraved on it. His name and address were all there, and they were all correct? But, Shao Qingyuan took the fish talisman. Get lost. Shopkeeper Pan subconsciously took a small step back. Constable Wang went forward and grabbed him. He sneered and said, "Do you think our lord is a muddle-headed official? This concerns the lives of millions of people. How can we hand such an important matter to him without confirming young Master Shao's identity?" Young Master Shao came from the capital and is escorted by the Imperial guards sent by the Emperor. No, there were no Imperial guards, but words had to be said beautifully. Shopkeeper Pan took 2 more steps back, feeling flustered. The others present pointed at him, making him panic. Constable Wang grabbed him and walked out. This is the Emperor's decree. You clearly have ulterior motives for doubting young Master Shao. Come, follow me to the government office. No, my lord, please spare me. I really didn't. I misunderstood. Constable Wang didn't listen and dragged him out. Tell the Prefecture Magistrate if it's a misunderstanding. Shopkeeper Pan burst into tears on the spot. He had already been to jail once and did not want to go again. His begging voice became more urgent, but it was also getting further and further away. After the voices could no longer be heard, Shao Qingyuan said to everyone, "It's all right. Continue." Everyone present now firmly believed in Shao Qingyuan. He was a true imperial physician who could take out fish talismans and could be trusted. Shao Qingyuan pinched the fish talisman in his hand and narrowed his eyes. This fish talisman was given to him by the Emperor. Since he had to take on the mission of Shuanha Prefecture's cowpox vaccination, he had to be given some necessary things to avoid many troubles. It seemed that the Emperor's consideration was right. This fish talisman had really saved him from trouble. He walked around the hall and saw that the doctors were familiar with it. After seeing that there were no problems, he quickly left the million gold pavilion silently from the back door. There was a carriage parked outside the back door. There were guards on both sides. When they saw Shao Qingyuan, no one stopped him. They let him walk to the carriage and jumped up. 2 people were sitting in the carriage and talking softly. When they heard the commotion, they immediately turned to look at him. What's going on with Shopkeeper Pan? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible.